Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Captain's Table. I am your host, Captain B-Nard, and topic of discussion today is going to be a power ranking for all DCEU movies. And here to discuss that with me, we have another variation of the panel. Returning to the Captain's Table for the 12th time and making a somewhat anticipated and elongated return, I guess, is Mitchelonius.
Whoop whoop.
Yes, and returning for the fifth time, we have Feltzwild.
Hello.
Yes, yes. So, you guys are my third version of the panel here at the table. We're going to be discussing DC today, something that we haven't done on this channel kind of sort of ever. I guess we did, you and I, Mitch, quite some time ago, talk about DC versus Marvel, and we did one about announcements, but we've never really
I
tackled
don't think it was so much that we did a DC versus. I think it was more
compare and
of
contrast. Yeah, we never really
right.
did. We've never really done a podcast specifically about DC. So I thought it would be a cool idea since, there are actually a decent amount of movies now in the DCEU or extended universe, that we actually do a power rankings for all 10, even though technically it's 9 movies in the DCEU. So that's what we're going to do today. Yeah, that is the game plan. We're going to do this the same way that we always do it. So we all made our own individual lists ranking each movie in the DCEU, and then I averaged them all out as well as took some input from the internet as a whole and the critics and fan reviews, and used all of that information to create the official list for the channel. Um, we're going to go through it basically the same as we always do with these power rankings. We're going to list them off from worst to first, and we're going to talk about the movie, what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, and that's the game plan. Anybody have anything they want to add to that?
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Okay, well, here's that one thing.
Okay.
I am the knight. I am Batman.
There it is.
Okay, I
Yes.
feel better now.
All right. Yeah. So, and one more thing I want to add actually is that Mitch and Feltz here are actually much bigger DC fans than me. So I historically, actually, when I was a kid, was a huge DC fan. But the last, like, I want to say maybe 15 or so years, like 10, 15 years, I really became a way bigger Marvel fan than DC. But these two people right here are much more hardcore, I guess, DC fans than me. Another thing I do want to mention actually before starting is that of these movies, I have not seen a few of them, although you guys have seen all of them. So when we get to the movies that I haven't seen on this list, I will, definitely give you guys more of the floor to talk about how you guys felt about it. Even though I have read like the synopsises of these and the reviews and all that stuff. I've done my homework on the movies I haven't watched. But still, since you guys have watched the movies yourselves, you will have more to say about them than me.
Well, I feel like doing the homework is a good part, and
Definitely.
not necessarily everything someone talks about they do exactly everything about. But the benefit you have is obviously two people who have seen all of them. With that aside, you also have another person that is very much a comic based too. So where those
Yes.
movies dictate to the source material, um, I feel is a good attribute to determining how good they actually were, as opposed to, say, comparing them to any other movie that is a superhero movie. Specifically for you, Bernard, because like you
Yep.
said, I've been on this channel with you 12 times. What, this is 13 or is this
This is
12?
number 12. Yep.
This is number 12. So I've been
Yes.
on this channel with you a few times.
Yes.
A lot, and a lot of it was Marvel. And,
Yep.
I am a purist in general. I love all superheroes. I love the message they convey.
Hmm.
And DC happens to hold a little extra something for me. So that's why I'm more of a DC guy, specifically Batman, because of the moral compass, the standard, how he has no powers, but yet still
His
overcomes
greatest
every
weapon is his
obstacle that
mind
comes
and
his
all that.
way. Yeah, exactly. His strongest power, if he had a power, is his mind.
Yep.
So I do levitate and gravitate towards whatever is Batman. Like,
Absolutely. As we
you
can
know,
tell by the tattoo.
you've got the initial trilogy, the Keaton, the Clooney, the Kilmer, and then you've got the Nolan trilogy. You've got Affleck. You've got now what's Robert Pattinson. What I'm saying is DC, just like Marvel, like what I do want to kind of bring into the beginning point of this, and I'm sure you're wondering where is he going with this.
A little bit.
Iron Man
Hmm.
is what opened up your Marvel universe, right?
Yep.
Right or wrong, as
Yes.
far
Yes.
as the cinematic universe goes,
Yes.
Iron
Absolutely.
Man opened that up.
Hmm.
Robert Downey Jr., his role, the way he played it,
Yep.
evidently the final scene in that where he said, "You know what?" and he put down the note cards and said, "I am Iron Man." That was improvised, and they kept it in. That came from Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Um, Same way with how Marvel didn't have a rhythm in the animated aspect,
Yeah.
or even so much the comic aspect, because Iron Man, who started it off for you, was also a comic book, but that comic book didn't sell well, and that wasn't to the persona that Robert Downey Jr. played it. So they actually took Robert Downey Jr.'s character and altered it to the Iron Man of the comics, and then it started to sell. So what I'm saying is, where one franchise seems to lack, the other seems to be stronger. So yes,
I'm glad that you brought that up in a way.
we're gonna talk about DCEU movies in this podcast, but the point that I really need to make right here in the beginning is you cannot. That is like comparing Marvel's animated series to DC's animated series. Okay,
Right. And
so
so no, I get what you're saying, and we're definitely not comparing and contrasting two franchises here, but yes, I get where you're coming from. To definitely I would agree that where one franchise seems to lack, the other franchise seems to be great, and vice versa. And that is a point I'm definitely going to mention toward the end of this after we do the actual list. So I do want to kind of start off with that. Unless Feltz, I know you've been pretty quiet. If you want to add anything, I know you're a pretty big Batman fan as well, historically, and also with DC. I know you grew up with that stuff.
Yeah, but I can wait for the bigger conversation to say anything.
Fair enough.
this is the best conversation right
The
here.
yeah the for the pre conversation.
The
So all right.
pre-conversation, because we're about to get into power rankings, so I feel
Yeah.
if you have something to compare and contrast, this is the time to. This is
This is the
the
time to
gateway,
get into the
the
list.
opening to
Okay,
do
so we're
it.
gonna start the list off here, and
Hold on,
yes,
before we start the list, though, give Sam a chance to,
unless you would like to
you've seen
change
all the
your
movies, right,
mind,
Sam?
Sam.
I have. Now, it's been a
Okay.
while since I've seen
Now,
some of
do
them.
you not know maybe much about the animated series?
Depends on which series.
Now, what series do you know about as far as DC is concerned?
Like, I watched the animated series growing up. That's
Mm-hmm.
the one that I remember the most. I
So,
haven't.
do you remember the animated Batman, the animated? Did I mean we could even take it a little bit out of DC and just kind of get funny for a second? Do you remember Ant-Man, um, or the Human Ant? Remember that the blue guy? He was like a blue.
You mean the
Oh no, the
Tick?
Tick. The
I
Yeah,
don't know what
Tick.
that has to do with anything,
Remember
but
the
yeah, I
Tick?
remember the Tick.
That has nothing to do with DC or Marvel. But what I'm saying is, like, these were idols that were created for us at a young
Yes,
age,
yes.
and you picked one side or the other. What I'm saying is,
Yes, you picked the DC side, I know. I think we're getting a little off topic here. I do want to come back to the list and get started with that, though.
Oh, I don't want to go to
So,
the
I know you
list.
don't want to go to the list, but we're just going to power through. The shit is going to
You
be at the
didn't let
bottom,
Sam finish
obviously,
his
and we're gonna
statement
we're
there,
gonna
by the
power through the
way,
shit.
Captain.
I think
You
she's.
are, you are, you are.
Do you have a
That's
statement? Hold on, hold on. Do you have a statement you would like to finish, Feltz?
No, I'm good. Let's just
All
get
right.
the list
We're going to get
going.
going. So, in the beginning of this list, it is definitely going to feel a lot like trying to find the shiniest turd in the pile. But we're going to
I
power
hate
through it.
you.
We're going to get through the bad
I
ones, and we're
fucking
going to
hate
get to
you.
the better ones. We're going to get to the better ones, okay?
Yeah, we're
So,
gonna get to the
I
better
just
ones.
want to
But
say.
why have you ever presented one of your Marvel podcasts with finding
No, because
the
there
shiniest
weren't
fucking shit in the turd?
there weren't a lot of shitty movies to talk about when it came to the MCU. Like
Oh
really
man.
there
There
were
were a
really no
couple.
shitty movies to come to talk about when it came to the MCU.
Yeah,
I have
but
to
guess
tell
what?
you,
There was a lot of shitty shit of the fact that
yeah,
Marvel almost
Daredevil,
went
Punisher, early
bankrupt.
2000s. I know there
No,
were some shitty
Marvel
movies.
almost
I
went
get that.
bankrupt.
Oh, for the
Ben
love of
Affleck played.
God.
Did you like that Ben Affleck Daredevil movie? Did you like
Not at
that?
all.
Okay,
But we're not
so
talking
shut up.
about that today, though. That's
Fuck
the
them.
thing. We're not talking about that.
All
So,
right.
so I
I'm
will say
fine. I just
now
had
that
to
we're going to
get that
get
out
to
of my system
topic,
because I
yes,
know we're about to go down a long road of you shitting on DC.
it's
Let's
not going to
go.
be that long, honestly. It's only going to be the first half of the list because it deserves it. But
All
anyway,
right.
so I will say, getting into the list, I will say it was pretty hard to rank the order of the first three movies on this list because, objectively speaking, I will tell you, I think these are three of the worst superhero movies ever made. And that's not
Uh,
even being biased. And I think you would agree these movies are pretty fucking bad. Even with all of your fan loyalty, you can't deny the quality or the
but
lack
you're
thereof
talking
of this
about the
movie.
best three superhero movies.
We're gonna,
Listen,
yeah. So we're just gonna get into it.
compared to past, all right, let's get into the
We're
first
gonna
one.
get into
You're
it. So
upsetting me already.
coming in,
All
come on.
right.
All right. So coming in at controversy is key at the captain's table. That's the
Yeah,
entertainment part.
I
You summed it up
understand
well.
this, but what I'm saying is,
It'll get
you
better. We'll power
understand.
through the
Like,
bad
dude,
ones. We'll
I
get through
have
the bad
Batman
ones.
tattooed on my arm.
I
Like,
know. So
you
that's why
are
you'll
you
be able to
understand.
speak. That's why you'll be able to speak about these topics very passionately, both good and bad. So,
All
with
right.
all of that being said, the longest introduction ever on the captain's table. We're gonna get to the list. So, coming in at number
Oh,
10 on the list, we have Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. So, I'll start things off by making some general comments, and I'll kick it over to you guys for more specifics. So, I have to say, this movie was bad for a lot of reasons. So I guess it would be easier to start with the positives. So I think one of the only positives I can think about this movie is that it did have some good fight scenes, some good action scenes. But other than that, I don't really have anything
where,
positive to. Well,
where?
all right.
Can you
Well,
tell me where?
I don't
Can
know.
you
I
tell me
thought
where the
I
fight scenes were good?
I thought the
Can
Batman
you tell
versus
me where that
Superman
happened?
fight scene. When
Was it
Batman
when
was
like
fighting Superman.
was the good scene the part where like Superman met Batman and was like, "Do you bleed?"
No,
And then like
no, that
and
wasn't
then like
no.
fell through the ceiling after he caught a kryptonite freaking
Look,
grenade
I'm trying to
and
give it a little
inhaled
bit
that.
of credit at least. You
No,
know.
you cannot give this movie any credit. This is the one movie on the list. I am a DC fan. This is the one movie on the list. I will say, if you're gonna shit on anything tonight,
This is it.
this is the one.
All right.
Shit on this one. Get it out of your system because the rest only deserve a little bit of shit,
Fair
not a
enough. Fair
bunch.
enough. So anyway, getting back to the movie, the negatives. So I think the biggest negative of this movie for me, just about what happened in the movie, was the fact that both Batman and Superman seemed wildly out of character in this movie, and this is a common complaint about this movie, but this is a very accurate complaint about this movie because the whole time Batman is kind of acting like a dick, and he's using guns, he's killing people at certain points, which for those of you who know the character of Batman is two things that he never does. um, he kind of just seems like, and don't get me wrong, I understand Ben Affleck is supposed to be playing like an older, more like, hardened, like cynical version of Batman. Um, but Batman, which Batman does get to in the source material, he does get to, an older, cynical version toward, as he ages, I guess you would say. But he never gets to the point really that we see that him portrayed as in this, like I said, with the things that he's doing and the way that he's acting is just very out of character for that character. Likewise with Superman, it's the same thing. He kind of has like a god complex, like he's kind of an apathetic dick, which is like not Superman at all. Because if you know the character of Superman, one of Superman's greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses has always been his humanity. So, and his care for the people and his will to protect the people of Earth. So, again, both of them just incredibly out of character, really shitty. The story was shit. It made no sense. It was wildly inconsistent with the source material. Um, so yeah, just really, really shitty overall. And another huge problem I have with this movie is the fact that it kind of set the table for the DCEU to suck for years to come, essentially, with the events of the movie, with what it did, with how it painted Batman and Superman, and how it did, I mean, it introduced Wonder Woman. I guess that was kind of a positive, and she was kind of okay. But like, again, other than that, like the very, very, very minuscule positives in this movie are far outweighed by the negatives, and so they really kind of screwed the franchise for years to come with what they did in this movie. Um, but I'll turn it over to you for more, Mitch, because I know, like you said, you have very, very strongly negative feelings about this movie as well.
Well, I would prefer to remain last on
All
this
right,
one
if you want to go last,
specifically.
then
Well,
Phelps,
I only say that because I have the
the special insight that you want to save the best for
yeah,
last. Fair enough.
I just
All right,
no,
so we'll
not
go
the
to Phelps then.
best.
So Phelps, if you want to,
I know the source material specifically where this was supposed to come from.
mhm.
So I kind of want to hear the objective opinions and then hop on where not that they're wrong or right, but just where the movie itself went wrong. And then at that point, maybe, you guys could agree with, hey, the source material would have been better, or there's no good way to tell this story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either of us are going to take the second opinion, but yeah. So Phelps, if you want to give me your
Well, I
opinion,
mean, but think about it. You have a fucking god
yeah,
going up against a human being. There
yeah,
there are plenty of people that'll take an opposite side to that story. I just,
fair enough. All right, so
this
Phelps,
is my first podcast with a new guest that isn't your dickhead brother Johnny Reps.
fair enough. All right, so Phelps, if you would now like to give your opinion on Batman versus Superman, go for it.
I've had pretty much the same thoughts, which sucks. I went in excited to see this movie because, it's Batman and it's Superman.
Hmm.
And I was just sorely disappointed and I was pissed off at how they did Batman dirty. And I felt dirty walking out of the movie. I'm not going to lie.
Well, another thing that that kind of doesn't make sense about this movie too is that I think the only movie we got in the DCEU prior to this was Man of Steel. So
hmm
this movie has, as far as the character development of Batman and Superman, this movie has no consistency with Man of Steel whatsoever. Because in Man of Steel, Superman is portrayed the way he should be, and we'll talk about that more when we get to Man of Steel a little bit farther up the list. But Superman is portrayed the way he should be as, a man of the people. And so the fact that he loses that in this movie for seemingly no reason is really stupid. And the way that Batman is treating him is like, okay, if Batman paid attention to the events of Man of Steel, he would know that Superman did everything he could to save everyone he could. So it's like, why is Batman mad at Superman? Like, it doesn't make any sense, And it's implied that like Batman's like hardened from past experiences, but there's no origin story for Batman, for Ben Affleck's Batman, so we don't have that either. So it's just terrible.
I like how you put that though when you said we don't have an origin story for Ben Affleck's Batman.
Yes,
hmm
because we don't.
Okay. But okay, so how many times can you hear a story about a kid's parents get killed in front of him and then he becomes Batman? How many times can you hear the story?
I get that, but at the
Right?
same time, like if
So
you're going
what
to portray an
DC
older
tried to do,
version of the character,
listen, from
yeah.
the source material,
Mhm,
I get what DC tried to do with this movie,
mhm.
but because I'm sorry, Sam, were you gonna say something?
No, go ahead.
Oh no,
Let
I'm
him
just
loose.
saying no, what I'm saying is from the source material that I understand about Batman versus Superman, which only happened once in the comics,
Mhm.
and it was after Batman was probably in his like 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I see where they went with it, but at the same time, I also see where they fell off. It came to a point of Kryptonite was the focal point.
Right.
Even when they went into Lex Luthor's party and, you know, Diana Prince was there, Bruce Wayne was there, Lex Luthor was there, Clark Kent was there, and all that stuff happened, and the flash drive, and this and that, and she took it and gave it back, and he was like, "I know who you are," and like how it all came together. None of that was relevant ever in the original storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Batman and Superman were actually best friends.
Yeah. Oh, I think we just lost him. Well, that's not good.
Nope.
Well, hopefully he'll try to rejoin the conversation. Um, yeah, I think he's kind of saying the same thing that we were saying, though. I'll see if I can try to get a hold of him
Okay.
to get back into. He got disconnected somehow.
He was saying he was having internet problems, so.
Yeah, he did say that. Um, you want to? So, do you have anything else you want to say about Batman versus Superman, Sam? I mean, I think we're probably all saying the same thing here about it's just it really didn't do the story justice. It just really didn't do the story justice because it just the movie was really nothing like the source material. I think that's what the point we're all kind of
Yeah.
driving toward, and that's I think going to be a reoccurring theme here
Throughout
in
at least most of these.
yeah throughout the throughout most of these movies. I think um, that's going to be a reoccurring theme is just the fact that um, the when I think when any franchise specifically or really any franchise at all deviates from the source material, I think that's when uh, it really gets in trouble, when it really loses itself, and that's when you see some of the worst quality product turned out from anything. And we've said this, I know you weren't on to for the for Marvel, you know, but um, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the same grievances we had with Marvel. Like some of the movies that were farther down on that list was that they deviated from the source material, and that I think more deviation from the source material um,
It just
is
goes
worse.
wrong.
Yeah, it
Have a
goes
little
this.
deviation,
Yeah,
make it
modernize it. Yeah, that's fine.
yeah,
But
and make throw in a little surprise or something, even
yeah,
for like the old fans. But you deviate too far, you're going off the tracks, and you're
yeah,
basically, you're screwed.
yeah, exactly. You ruin the story when
Yeah.
you deviate from the source material too much. You mess up the story, and I think it always kind of makes me laugh when franchises do this so much because it's like that's what brought you to the dance, like you have to stick with what
Oh,
brought you to yep, you're back.
Yay.
So but
all
that's but
right.
that but that's what brought you to the dance. And that what we were saying while you were gone was I think what we're all driving at here is when something like this departs from the source material so drastically, that's really what makes these movies or these products worse, you know what I mean?
Where did you lose me though? Because
We lost you right when you were talking about how Batman and Superman were actually friends in the source material, and
okay, well
yeah,
let me end on that point though. I
yeah,
won't drag it out as long as I did. I didn't realize I had there were technical difficulties, but what I'm saying is
hmm,
Batman and Superman were friends, and here's the thing: Batman versus Superman didn't happen until Batman was about in his like 60s. I want to say early 60s, right?
right,
So here's the other thing: the way that they did it in this movie was Batman was angry about what had occurred in the Man of Steel movie. I don't remember. I do remember the scene with
The building coming
Perry.
down, him fighting Jor-El
Yeah,
in
and
the
he was
building, or
like,
not? Yeah,
well,
not
no,
Jor-El.
no. The girl was like
Zod.
stuck in the cage.
Yep.
Like it wasn't a cage, but it was like she was stuck under like the frame of the metal. What the cement goes around,
Hmm.
and he's like, I'm not gonna leave you. I'm not gonna leave you. And that thing's like terraforming the earth, and Superman just like flies up into it finally and destroys it, and he saves them. They don't die,
Yeah.
right? So clearly, you see in this movie, this man's willing to sacrifice his life to save Earth. This man uh, is fighting three other Kryptonians. He's getting fucked up. He's not getting fucked up, but getting fucked up. But what causes what they're saying the focal point of this movie is the fact that rolled over into a Wayne building got knocked over and
Yeah.
someone died.
Yeah.
And then that turned into now Bruce Wayne wants vengeance because this guy needs to be put in check.
Yeah, it's like
And
it's almost like he thinks somebody like Superman shouldn't exist because he's too
but here's the
powerful.
thing, but here's where it gets real dumb because now
Oh,
you
that
got
wasn't
Lex
real dumb.
Luthor. No, 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 no. This is why I say this movie's we're gonna shit on this one hard and then go through a couple on the list quickly and then
Yeah.
and then it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, listen, when you couldn't hear me, what I was saying was very simply this:
Yeah.
A, you've got Wonder Woman in this movie. B, you've got Lex Luthor. C, you've got fucking Clark Kent. D, obviously, names in the title. You got Bruce Wayne, but the scene at the party, he puts the fucking flash drive in the computer, does whatever, and then it's missing. Diana Prince stole it. He sends her a message, I know who you are. She gives the shit back. And what it comes down to is everybody's trying to get their hands on some kryptonite, right?
Yep.
So Batman does. And he makes weapons. Then he uses these weapons against
Against the guy who
Superman.
is willing to sacrifice himself to save the planet. Makes perfect sense, you know?
But then he uses them against Superman.
Yep.
And then when it comes down to the point where he has a fucking pike, literally like aimed at dude's chest, like right at the hope symbol, right at the Kryptonian L symbol, his nameplate, right at it. And all he has to do is like 3 more inches, like you're dead, right?
Yep.
Save Martha. And Batman's like, what? Because what people don't really think about is Batman's father's name was Thomas. Well, his mother's name was, guess what? Martha. So when Superman said, save Martha, Batman went, I'm mentally dysfunctionate in this way. I got mommy issues. And then he said it a second time.
Yeah.
When he said it that second time, he takes what he's worked so hard for throughout this whole movie and he throws it.
Yep.
And it's gone. It's
Yeah.
in water.
Yeah, so
Now,
I think
this is where it gets worse. Doomsday gets involved.
Yeah.
So now you've taken the death of Superman, which is Doomsday versus Superman. That's a wholly separate movie. And you've taken Batman versus Superman, which is a whole separate movie. And you've taken both of those movies and you've just smushed them together like different colored Play-Doh that turns brown. And you're like, Mommy, I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention about this movie, because I think we've wasted enough time talking about this turd, is the fact that I think another part of the problem with this movie is it kind of like mashing all of the fucking like mashing multiple like storyline arcs together. Like that's just a
No,
huge
but what I'm saying
issue.
is there's
It
nothing in
invalidates them
this
all.
movie at all that's canon, Bernard.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like,
Yes.
you know how some movies go a little bit off of the source material, but like not crazy, but
Yeah.
enough whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
This movie had no source material. I mean, a literal amount of zero comic book source material. There was not one part of this movie that made any sense. And
Yes.
that's why it sits at the bottom. Sure, it had good graphics, had good fights, whatever. It made no sense
Yes.
in the superhero world.
I agree completely, and I think that's a good place to leave this because, like I said, this movie sucked. Like, there's no two ways about it. And I think the bigger picture here, like I said before, is this movie set the stage for years of suck in the DCEU. Like, the ramifications of this movie were felt all up through the next several movies, and that's, I think, another
So,
reason why
what's the
we
next movie on the list? Is
actually.
it
I'm
Dark
glad you asked.
World? Is it Thor? Is it Thor Dark World?
No,
Is
it's
that what
even
it
worse.
is?
It's even worse. Coming in
Are you
at
sure?
that feeds into
Are
the
you
that
sure it's
feeds
not
it
Thor
feeds
Dark
that
World?
point that we were making feeds into the next movie in this list because
Kiss
coming in
my ass,
at
Bernard.
number 9 coming in at number 9, we have the Justice League, and this is specifically the
uh,
original Justice League from 2017, or the Justice League, as I just made up
can
right
we just
now.
skip to
Uh,
like number
Justice
5?
League.
the
Can we
Justice League.
just
You like
can we
that,
go
Phelps?
from 9 to 5 here?
We're
Can we
not going to
not
go
even
that. We got
just?
to talk a little bit about these movies. I know you wasted a lot of time on
Uh,
Batman versus Superman
that was an
and
important one
monologues and
though. These
whatnot. It
aren't. These
was.
aren't. All
Well,
right.
this movie is pretty
Here.
important, so I'll start things off.
Oh, is it?
We're gonna try to move a little quicker though, because I don't want
Okay.
this to take up all night, or make 2
Right.
podcasts out of it or
Right.
anything like
Right.
that. So in any event, Justice League, the original. Pros and cons. So for me personally, pros kind of good action, good fighting, that kind of thing. Same thing you would say about most superhero movies, I think. Um, Loosely wasn't terrible, like, as far as, I guess so the idea of the movie, like founding the Justice League, Batman recruits everybody, brings everybody together to fight the bad guy. The idea, obviously, the very, very rough sketch of the idea of the movie, obviously nothing wrong with that, because that's what happened when the Justice
Everything
League
wrong with that. What do you mean nothing wrong with that?
the
That's not
loose
even
sketch,
canon.
not the
That's
execution.
not even canon.
Whatever. What I'm saying is the idea is not an issue. The idea is not an issue for me. It's more the execution. So the negatives, again, as
They
I
should have
mentioned, these
fucking
first
executed this movie too.
yes, the first
This
3
one
movies,
too.
like I mentioned on this list, were 3 of the worst superhero movies ever made, in my opinion. So, obviously, there's a lot more negative to talk about. So but I do like to try and at least call out some positives if there are any. Try to be objective. The negatives of this movie, though, obviously far outweigh. The biggest one, obviously, story made no fucking sense. Specifically in the original version of the movie that we got, story made no fucking sense whatsoever. It was like the main plot of the movie was supposed to obviously be to stop Steppenwolf from bringing Darkseid to Earth and causing the apocalypse, and yet Darkseid is nary referenced or mentioned or seen in the movie, and it's like the entire plot of the movie like isn't even like discussed, which is like, or featured, which is beyond stupid, obviously. Um, a big sticking point for me, a huge sticking point for me, which is still a huge sticking point to this day for me, as you can tell by our thumbnail on this very podcast, is the fact that how do you have a founding of the Justice League movie without Green Lantern? And I know a lot of people are probably over this at this point, but you know what? God damn it.
Why do you have to bring this
I
up
am not.
though?
We're talking about this movie, and I am not over it. I was a fan of the Justice
But
League, and everybody knows when
it
you're a
was
kid,
fixed. That was fixed.
everybody knows Green Lantern. No, it wasn't. Get the hell out of here.
Yes,
They
it
did not
was. Have you
fix
not
that.
watched the
I
Snyder
did
cut?
see
It
that
was
clip, and that
fixed.
does not fix that in any. That is not a fix for not having Green Lantern as a member in this movie. That is
It
not a
was
fix. That is
fixed.
not a
Come
fix. And I will
on.
bitch about that more
Sam, Sam,
when we
this
get.
is
No,
where
no, no,
you
no, no,
need
no,
to
no, no,
back
no.
me
Let me
up.
finish. I will bitch about this more when we get to the Snyder cut, but we're not talking about the Snyder cut right now. We're talking about the initial cut, and there is no Green Lantern, and it is ridiculous. It is offensive. It is bullshit. It is a travesty that you could shoehorn Cyborg into this movie, who had nothing to do with the founded, probably wasn't even born when the Justice League was originally founded in the source material, and they shoehorn him into this movie for no fucking reason, and it pisses me off that this movie is 4 years old. I'm not even that big of a DC fan, and it pisses me the fuck off to this day that the Green Lantern is not in this movie as a founding member of the league.
Okay, so let me
So
ask you
with
a
that
question.
being said, I'll turn it over to you, Mitch.
No. Turn it over to Sam. I want to be the final
All
standpoint
right.
because
So with
I
that
know
being
that
said, since
I
this is
know
going
that
to be a reoccurring
I know the
theme,
source
is
material.
see. Okay,
That's
so
why
we're
I
gonna.
want to
So
hear
all
both
right, all right,
objective
all right, all
opinions,
right, all
and
right,
then
all
I want
right,
to
all
bring
right,
the
all right,
source
all right.
material into it.
So having said that, we're going to go to Feltz Wild because you don't want to cooperate with the host of the show. So we're going to go to Feltz Wild, who's actually a team player, which is good. And we're going to get your take on the Justice League. I know you liked I heard you laugh at my Justice League joke.
I did.
Before I aim to please. So I'll get your take on this.
Okay, let me see. Where can I start here?
Did you see this one in
Yeah.
theaters? Did you feel dirty when you walked out of the
Yeah,
theater?
I did.
Okay, that's a good
And
place to start.
see,
Felt
I
like
love
you
Joss
wasted
Whedon.
that money that could have been better spent on Fortnite.
Yep. Yep. No.
Got him.
No.
Go ahead.
I went in because, this was before all the controversy with Joss Whedon has come out and everything, and I was a huge fan of him because, he gave us the Avengers and everything, right? But, and he gave me Buffy. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, please do this well. No, he didn't, and he did it out of spite because he's a piece of shit.
Okay, so that's unconfirmed. I mean, him being a piece of shit is probably confirmed, but him fucking this movie up out of spite is not confirmed. And actually, if you would like
That's
to
my
tell
story, and I'm sticking with it.
if you would like to, since you haven't talked much, Feltz, if you want to tell the story of how Joss Whedon got shoehorned into directing and cutting this movie, much like Cyborg got shoehorned into the Justice League when he should have never been there, just like Joss Whedon should have never been there. If you want to tell that story, I'm all ears.
Would you want me to tell it now, or when we
Yes,
get to the
now.
Zack Snyder?
Well, you
Okay.
can tell
Well, Zack Snyder was obviously set to do this movie. It was his movie. He had it all planned. It was his baby, and then unfortunately, his actual baby, his daughter, died. So I don't remember if he was fired or if he quit, but
He was fired.
Was he? Okay.
because
So
he
he
wanted
was
to take
fired.
time off. Is that why?
Probably.
No,
No?
Well, yes, he wanted to take a moment away from
Yeah.
Which
script
is
writing and
100%
film writing,
reasonable. Obviously, who could blame him for that, except for the
and
morons at
Joss
DC?
Whedon.
But
A
anyway,
big reason
continue.
why he's a fucking big reason why he's an asshole is because he was all like, "Oh, well, if you're gonna take time off, then you don't need to be a part of it," because they
Yeah.
wanted to push it out. So
And he
keep going.
ruined
I'm
the
sorry, I
movie.
didn't mean to, but just to clarify for you there that he was actually fired, and that's why that was like what.
Yeah.
He tried to make it another Avengers movie, and he just failed hard.
Yeah. So, do you have any problems, particularly with what we got in this movie? Like, what are your biggest gripes with this specific cut of the movie and what they gave us and what they should have given us, what they didn't give us?
Everything.
Just everything.
It made no sense.
Yeah.
Like I was confused when I walked out, and I know the story, and it's just like, what did I just watch?
Yep. I've had that feeling as well. Yeah. I think you're up there, Mitch. If you want to give your expertise on this Justice League, the 2017 version.
Okay, so just like you, I have a big issue with having the lanterns in it.
As you should, as everyone should.
Any form, any form, even if it was like you had a cameo with like the way they did it in Shazam, where like okay, it's a digitally generated lantern, but like you still needed to like present that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I get but with that aside, I will say, it's hard to talk about this movie without talking about the remake, the cut
Well, you can
that
definitely
was
we'll
done.
definitely talk more about it when we get to the cut, but I just want you
Right, but what I'm
yeah.
saying is it's hard for me to talk about the bad points
Yeah.
without bringing up the good points because I've seen them both. So like this movie itself, I feel like we shouldn't spend too much time on it at all because it's literally an incomplete movie. It's a movie that was done before its time. It's a movie that was done without any explanation. It's a movie that was done improperly because it didn't even have the core members. It just all around was a bad movie that focused on bringing Superman back.
Right.
That was like the focal point of this whole movie the whole time. Even as Batman gathered everybody, he was like, "Well,
Even
yeah,
everybody put together isn't as good as Superman, so
and
you
then they're like,
know.
okay, let's break into Captain Zod's ship, and let's instead of putting Zod in there, which created Doomsday, let's put Superman there, and it just makes Superman again. Like it
Yeah, it's
just
really
it was
it's just stupid.
it was rushed. It was incomplete, and I think that's where Zack Snyder, because I've seen his other movies, as far as superheroes, anything goes, and they're good. So I think the fact that he was removed from that, and then Joss Whedon, who, is interesting. You brought up Buffy. Loved that series. Watched Angel.
Hmm.
Watched all that stuff. Me and my wife both. We love that. But in this movie, no, he failed. He dropped the ball, and he has no one to blame but himself. And I think that's all the time we should really honestly spend on this aspect of this movie, because when it comes to the Snyder's cut, you've got almost 4.5 hours worth of content, and that is going to take a discussion.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes, yes. So
as
the one
far
thing I
as
want to,
Justice League goes,
yeah,
you know what? Improperly done. Timing was terrible. Uh, Building up to whatever it became was terrible. The fact that you had Steppenwolf as opposed to Apocalypse, which the mother boxes are linked to any true fan knows that. The whole movie was just done horribly. Let's leave it there. That's
yep.
why it's at number 2 at the bottom. If anything, I would almost say Batman versus Superman was better than this movie. So, at
Almost.
that point,
Yeah,
let's move on to the
I do want to
next
mention
one.
one last thing that you or expound one a hair upon something you mentioned is that the timing. So that is something that was really bad about this movie too, is the fact that this was, I think, what, the third movie or fourth movie in the DCEU, I want to say. They had not done standalone origin stories for any hero in the DCEU aside from Superman and Man of Steel at this point. So how in the hell do you think it's a good idea to make a Justice League movie, which is a obviously conglomeration? It's the equivalent of the Avengers in Marvel. How do you make a conglomeration, a superhero team up movie, when you haven't even introduced or given an origin story to pretty much any of the fucking heroes? Like what? Like, just the sheer idea of that is just stupid on its face. Like, everything, I agree with you completely. Everything about this movie is stupid. Again, still makes me mad to this day, but it is what it is. We've spent, decent time on it. We're going to spend a lot more time on it when we get up to the Snyder Cut, because there's a lot more to talk about. Now,
There
moving on
definitely
to number
is.
8 on the list. Coming in at number 8 on the list, we have the Suicide Squad. So, I will tell you right off the cuff, you guys actually outvoted me on this one, because, in my personal opinion, I have nothing good to say about this movie at all. So I personally rank this movie much lower. You guys tend to like it a little more than the last two turds that we talked about. But like I said, these bottom three movies, in my opinion, are three of the worst superhero movies ever made. So placing them one slightly above the other was a little difficult. However, I think we did get it right at the end of the day with the way we placed them. But yeah, Suicide Squad, like I said, I don't have anything good to say about this movie at all. The story seemed weird. It seemed stupid. The characters were they were very unlikable in my opinion. I know everybody creams their pants over Harley Quinn, or at least a lot of people, both fangirls and
I mean, who
fanboys, do.
doesn't?
I don't. I don't
Um,
enjoy. The whole team up. It was like a team up of a bunch of characters that I think nobody cared about aside from Harley Quinn. I know a lot of people care about her. They try. I hate how they tried to make Deadshot like a family man, even though anyone who knows the source material knows that that's not Deadshot. I hate the over exaggeration of like the Harley Quinn character, if you guys know what I mean, like the way that they portrayed her is, I'm not going to do the impression because I don't want the three listeners I have.
Mr.
All
J.
right, now you got
Mr.
now. All right,
J.
now I'm gonna force my
Puddin'.
three listeners
Oh,
to.
Puddin'.
Yeah, I'm
Mr.
gonna
J.
force.
Mr. J.
Mr.
Oh, Mr.
J.
J.
Yeah, so they
Maybe
could have
my wife
definitely
could do
toned that
it. I
down.
think
Yeah,
Mr.
the
J.
action scenes weren't even that good. This, like I said, the story was stupid. It didn't make any sense. They're trying to portray these group of people nobody knows or cares about as like likable, and it just doesn't work. Like nothing, in my opinion, nothing works about this movie. The ending is stupid. The villain is stupid. Like just everything is stupid about this movie. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I love you, Randy Orton. All right. Nobody's going to get that reference, but whatever. I'm going to kick it over to Feltz for more because, like I said, that's pretty much all I got to say about this. This is just an awful movie. There's nothing, in my opinion, nothing good about it. But if you can find something good to say about it, Feltz, please, you have the floor.
I think the best parts of the movie, and you're gonna disagree with me, were Harley and Deadshot.
Mm.
I think they carried the movie, and I think my problem with it mostly was Enchantress. I think she was not the right villain for this story. I think if they went with somebody different, we would have gotten a whole different movie, and just like the new one that's coming out, it would have been so much better than it was. I enjoyed it because I thought it was fun. I I love Margot Robbie, so yes, I'm on the Harley train. But
Of course.
I thought everybody played their roles well. Jared Leto was Jared Leto, but
Oh my God, we don't even have to like. We're that. Oh my God, like I almost even forgot about that. Like with all the other.
So, Jared Leto is Jared Leto, huh?
Jesus Christ.
I think I opened a can of worms I didn't mean to open.
Yeah, you might have.
Unfortunately, I mean, come on. Jared Leto. All right, so let's just not to focus on that, but let's just 1 second.
Because he wasn't that big of a part of the movie anyway, but.
No.
What? But what? There's a Bernardo. I don't know if you know this or not.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of people that have mixed views, opinions about Jared Leto as the Joker. Where
Are those people
they
who
think,
are like don't have all their brain cells in their head? That because in my opinion, the only way that you could possibly like Jared Leto's Joker in any capacity is if you're missing some brain cells. But I digress.
no, I'm talking about his laugh.
Oh, same.
Oh, I hate to laugh.
I say the same thing about that.
No, but what I'm saying is there
are people
Oh,
who like
you're
it, is
saying
what you're trying to tell me? Because, like I said, I don't.
yes.
I
There
I
are
find that hard to believe.
No, I'm not. I do too because I don't enjoy it, but
That's an understatement.
I'm trying to be polite.
Don't be. We're still in the bottom three here.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Jared Leto, the Joker laugh. Like, okay, so I've had my own friends, you included, tell me that sometimes when I get real worked up or I laugh real hard, it kind of sounds like, maybe like the Joaquin Phoenix, like kind of like it's like it's not a creepy laugh, but at the same time you're like, okay, you're laughing too hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when I hear the Jared Leto laugh, and it's like it's not even okay. So you know how you try to imitate a character, you can't. So Mark Hamill, obviously greatest animated Joker voice ever.
Of course.
100%.
What?
100%.
You're not getting any arguments
Yes.
here from that.
So now from Mark Hamill, he had to follow Jack Nicholson, who was the live action Joker from the Batman movie with Michael Keaton, the original. Not original. There was Adam West, but I'm talking like, not modern day, but that's who Hamill followed.
Yes.
Not the TV version, was the movie
We
version.
get what you're saying. Yep. Because everybody thought when Nicholson was the Joker, everybody thought he set the bar for the Joker, and then Hamill followed that, and they thought he set the bar for the Joker, and then
Right.
Ledger followed that, and everybody thought he set the bar for the Joker. It was like a generational thing almost. And then along comes Jared Leto and takes a giant shit
Uh,
on the Joker. And I understand. I just have to interject. I
no, he didn't
understand.
just take a giant shit on the Joker. Like, it was almost like he didn't try. Like, so my point was, though, even after Mark Hamill,
Mhm.
because again, an advantage is having a purist. You also had Troy Baker.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
So Troy Baker, he played a Joker, and he was excellent. I mean, his inspiration came from Hamill, so he sounded very much like Hamill,
Mhm.
like almost to a letter. And then the laugh, very much like Hamill, but at the same time, kind of. If you're a real fan, you'll know the difference. Um,
Yeah.
Point being, there are people out there that say, "Oh, well, Jared Leto, he made it original. He made it his own."
That's not always good. That's the thing. Like making
Yeah,
something
that's exactly
being
my
different does
point.
not
Like
always equal
when I
being
hear these
good.
people say these things, I look at them and I'm like, "Do you understand how ruining an iconic character in a movie can just literally ruin a movie? It doesn't matter if that movie is even about that character, but the fact that you ruin that character fucks the movie."
Well, I
So
think
when it
there's
comes
more
to
shitty things about this movie than just that, but yes, that is a huge disadvantage as well. Oh, did we lose him again?
No.
no, you didn't lose me.
Oh, okay. I thought we lost it for a second. Okay, continue though.
What you
I
didn't
heard
hear
it.
me?
I heard it.
Ah,
Playing more shit
okay.
on my podcast. It's gonna
No,
get me
no,
flagged.
I'm
Trying to get me
focusing on a
flagged
point.
by YouTube.
I'm
That's your point.
focusing on a point.
Because
I'm
I'm
focusing on a
making you
point.
talk about the shitty DC movies, so you're trying to get me flagged and removed from YouTube. Well played, sir. Well played.
Focusing on a point. The
Okay.
point is, how does that? You cannot like that's beyond. That's too
Beyond the
much.
pale. It is beyond the pale. It sucks. I understand that. Would you, however, in the interest of time, do you have anything else to complain about the Suicide Squad? Because, like I said, I think there was a lot more to complain about than just the incredibly shitty Jared Leto Joker. Like, I know you weren't a big fan of the Harley and Deadshot thing because they had a very different relationship in the source material, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink.
Okay, so uh another, yes, I will say this. When I look at the Suicide Squad, and I know you don't really like Antagonist too much, but when I look at the animated version,
Mm-hmm,
and then I look at the live action version,
mm-hmm.
or I look at the comic version, the differentiation, the different, fuck that word, the differ,
Difference?
no, not the difference, the
Differential?
separation,
Haha.
the disconnect is that, okay, so in the movie they portrayed Deadshot as like a father figure,
Mm-hmm.
and in the comic book they portrayed Deadshot as a potential, not a current, but a potential love interest.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the animated series, she had relations with Deadshot. Now, let's take it a step further. You have in the movie, Deadshot is black.
Mm-hmm.
You have in the comics, Deadshot is white. And you have in the animated series that Deadshot is white. So now, you haven't just taken a character from its source material. I don't care who you make black or white. What I'm saying is, you've taken a character and you've literally plucked it like a flower,
Mm-hmm.
and then you turned it into whatever you wanted it to be as opposed to what it was.
Yeah, and that's what
And I
I
think
was
that's
talking about with the
and I think that's
departure.
terrible
Yeah,
in any movie. So when you're talking about the Suicide Squad,
yeah.
even like characters like Boomerang
Mm-hmm.
wasn't proper. His fucking, what, that stuffed animal, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie. I'm gonna say Eddie.
What was the alligator? Killer Croc.
Kill Croc, yeah.
Yeah.
come on, like he wasn't all. I'm a sexy motherfucker. Yeah, come on, look at me wearing this,
Yeah, no, I
you
understand. They
know,
pretty much changed,
purple velvet. Like
yeah, they
they
just
just took every
changed
character
everything.
and they
Yeah.
decided, you know what, we're gonna do our own thing with it, and we're gonna make it whatever, and it is what it is, and people are gonna like it. Well, here's the thing: you have people like me who go to the movies and go, yeah, fuck you, motherfucker. That's bullshit.
Well, yeah, and I think they were just like and this kind of feeds to what I said in the beginning, is I think they were, to them, to the people who made this movie, this was just supposed to be all about Harley Quinn, because that she was the draw, and they were like, okay, we're just gonna pull a bunch of other characters out, and we're gonna bend them and fuck them up and change them from the source material just to bend them around her essentially to whatever role that we need, and it ended up being terrible, and it was what it was. So, I mean,
And
I
just to end on that, and listen,
yeah.
just to end on that note,
Oh, I was hoping you'd give me the Leto laugh since we were talking about that. So, um, anyway,
that's the real Joker,
yeah. Well,
not eh, 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 eh. I'm not gonna lie. You you,
you missed the
you
best
took
part though. You forgot the best part at
you
the end.
took you took an iconic character and ruined him.
Yes,
It didn't matter what the rest of the movie could have been brilliant.
and it still would have
You've
sucked in your
taken
eyes.
an icon and butchered him,
Yep.
and that's where it ends for me.
Fair
Like,
enough. So moving
done with
on.
it.
Yes, moving on. We're gonna move on. So, we're going up to number 7 here on the list, and coming in at number 7, we have Wonder Woman 1984. So, this is one of the 3 movies on this list that I did not see, so I'm going to let you guys do most of the talking about this. I will say that of all of the reviews and the synopsis and everything that I read about this movie, people did like it. Yeah, I think there's a pretty sizable quality gap between the first 3 movies we talked about and then moving up to this movie, based on everything that I've seen and heard of the movie. I will say one of the biggest complaints that people had about the movie was that they kind of made Wonder Woman like not as, I guess like standalone, because like a big draw of Wonder Woman has always been like she's as being like the strong independent woman, and like pretty much the original female superhero is Wonder Woman, right? So I know a big criticism people had about this movie about it was that it seemed like the entire time she was just chasing her love interest essentially, and that she was kind of like she kind of helped create Cheetah essentially, the one villain by through her own actions or lack thereof. But yeah,
Well,
so
that is
people.
true to the source material.
Right, but and this movie, it does have a lot of consistencies with the source material. So, like I said, I did see a lot of positive. I definitely saw more positive things than negative things online about this movie, which I think is like I said, the first movie that we're talking about here that I think is more positives than negatives to talk about. But I'll throw it over to you for more, Felts, because like I said, you guys saw this movie, I didn't. But I know you were a really big fan of this movie, actually, or maybe not a really big, but a pretty big fan.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was like a huge fan of it or anything, but I guess I went in knowing that it wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be, so I went in with the bar being a little low.
Mm,
But I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. I understood, I guess, kind of why everybody was hating on Wonder Woman in this, but I understood why she was the way she was as well.
mm.
I have this weird thing with movies where I don't know how to explain it, but
You like a lot of shit. Let's just say it for what it is. You like a lot of bad movies.
no, that's not what I'm
Yes.
saying.
Don't listen to her, folks. She does like a lot of bad movies. I know. Trust me.
Shut up.
But anyway,
Um,
continue.
I lost what I was saying now.
That's right. You told me you shut up, Bernard.
No, you were saying how you understood why it got the hate that it got.
and I
Because I think it does
understood.
have more. Like I don't want to cut you off, but I want to say I think it definitely has higher
I
critic
like how he
reviews.
picked on me for he doesn't want to listen to the host
But
and he
it's my
cut me
show,
off.
though. But it's
He
my
asked
show.
you to
That's the
make a
thing.
point.
But it's my
You go to
show.
make a point, and then he's like, "Not to cut you off, but I'm going to cut you
Well, I just want
off."
to insert this, and then I'll let you go back to what you were
Let
saying.
him finish your point, bro.
My point is that the critics definitely
No,
rated this
your
movie
point
higher than
doesn't
the fans.
matter.
The fans were more mad about this than the critics. But anyway, please continue.
Thank you.
Damn it. Anyway, yeah. What I was saying was I understood the way Wonder Woman kind of fell. She was falling from grace, and she was losing her abilities, and losing her abilities is, you know, it's tied to who she is. And it was all because she made her wish. And she didn't even, you're holding this damn rock thing. You don't think it's real. Of course, the one thing you're going to wish for is the love of your life to come back. So I understood that. And her consequence was she was losing her morality. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not sure why she was losing her morality, but I guess what was it? Well, it's the monkey's paw or whatever. You make the
Would
wish.
Yeah,
you
it's
would
the
you
same.
would you
The
agree
concept of you
with
make the wish, but
hold
there's
on,
a
Bernard,
catch
because
22.
again,
Yeah.
you said you couldn't say much about this movie because you didn't see it, Bernard. So let me break it down to you this way, Sam. Let me ask you one question.
Okay.
Do you think that the movie kind of circled around the concept of like karma to where in a way she made a selfish choice and it costed her ability to be
Yeah.
selfless for others?
Yeah.
That's a yes.
Now, did you enjoy that focal point, or did you think it should have maybe focused more on who Wonder Woman actually was?
Um, I mean, I, I did enjoy it, but I do like. I'm kind of glad we got to see almost a different side of Wonder Woman, if that makes any sense.
So you got to see the more human side.
Yeah, I
I
liked
can
that.
I can understand that. I mean, in my opinion, yeah, when you get to see the human side of a superhero, it's always awesome. But at the same time, I feel like when that human side, because again, being a huge Batman fan, when that human side costs you, like you said, you know, your morality, like it starts to warp you as an individual.
Hmm.
I feel like that's when, even as a superhero, you've made a wrong choice. You know, not to uh, quote again here to inflate Big Ben here. his
I think I know where you're going with this.
ego.
With great power comes great
His
responsibility. Am I right?
no, because there's even a better saying than when great power comes great responsibility. And my wife sent this to me. One day I was at work, I wasn't feeling the greatest, you know, and my wife tries to cheer me up and she tries to make me feel like I matter and I'm a superhero. So she sends me this message and it says, "Are you ready?" It
Hmm.
says, "That person who helps others simply because it should or must be done, and because it is the right thing to do, is indeed, without a doubt, a real superhero." That is something that the late and great Stan Lee had said.
Hmm.
Damn straight.
Now, what Wonder Woman I felt did in this movie, and I don't want to make a superhero, someone who's already sacrificed so much, feel bad for sacrificing anything, but you're a superhero. That's what you do, right? So when she made that selfish choice and it started costing her everything, I didn't feel bad. Did you feel bad?
No, but I also don't think she realized it at first. She didn't realize that it was the wish that was doing it until they were all like she was looking into it a little bit more, and that's when she realized, oh, I screwed up. Did
But
she?
don't you think that as a superhero or as someone with great power, as Bernard put it, uh, with real, true power comes real and true
It's with great power
responsibility.
comes great
No,
responsibility,
I know
damn
this
it.
saying, but I'm trying to relate it more to Wonder Woman's situation, more to DC.
Yeah.
She had a chance to make the right choice, but she made the wrong choice. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you get
Yeah.
why like I feel like that movie was too dramatized because of the wrong choice? Like that's not how you and any animated movie you see Wonder Woman in, you know, it's it's
Her making the
polar
wrong choice is not
opposites.
really a thing, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
It's
she doesn't
polar
make the wrong
opposites
choice.
to what
That's not
you
really who she
see.
is. Yeah, I know. I
Yeah,
understand
which is
that.
Exactly.
why I think I enjoyed
It's
this.
polar opposites to what she's doing now in the live action, and I think that's why she caught hate. I don't think she caught hate because you know, not your typical, not your whatever, not this, not that. Like I think it
Well, you'd
was
be
more of
surprised the
like,
things that people bitch about online. Let me tell you.
well, hey, listen, you know me, Bernard. I'm not on all that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that I do know.
So I'm disconnected. You know,
Yeah.
I don't got Facebook, I don't got Twitter, I don't got TikTok, I don't got Instagram. I got none of that. None of that.
Yep.
I don't want it.
Yep.
My point is, there's in life is choices. Whether you're great or you're not, life is choices. You make the right one, you make the wrong one.
Yep. Fair enough.
Depending on what choice you make determines repercussions. Those repercussions can happen instantaneously or they can happen down the line. What I'm saying is what I didn't like in this movie is the fact that they retained down the line, but she didn't realize it until like she had to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, cause he didn't see it, but you saw it. So like, remember how like she would like had that moment where she was like, "Oh shit." It was
Yeah.
like that "oh shit" moment,
Yeah.
and then she like had to fix everything.
Yeah.
That just didn't really sit good with me. I don't know.
Fair
I
enough.
felt
I
kind of like,
understand what you're saying.
you're a superhero. You may not want to be on a pedestal, but you technically are better than everybody else, so you should be. Like, what the fuck? you
Yeah, and
know?
that makes sense. I mean, to be honest with you, I can see both sides of the coin. I think, people like a relatable hero, although, I think a lot of times, and not to get into the broader discussion of DC versus Marvel, but I've always thought one of the biggest strengths that Marvel has had is most of their characters are pretty relatable versus a lot of times DC characters can come off as not quite as relatable. I do appreciate them trying to make that relation with Wonder Woman, but at the same time, I also think that like, yeah, it's kind of out of character for her because, like I said, like that's Wonder Woman's whole thing, with the lasso of truth and like all that bit. So like, it does kind of cut against the character in a way, but I mean, I guess it kind of is what it is. Like, not, like I said, from what you guys are saying and from what I've seen, it was, still a fine movie, just not like I think it's kind of not quite up to snuff with the rest of what we're going to look at, but definitely nowhere near as bad as what we've already talked about. So,
Right.
but
And I agree, but
yeah,
I'm just saying I don't want people to think it's a bad movie because actors, actresses, and it came down to literally no one following any source material in any of the movies we've spoken about so far.
and
So
that's a reoccurring theme I think with us is that and that's not just for DC. That goes for pretty much every franchise, TV, movie, anything. Is that you start to depart too drastically from the source material and you're going down the wrong path, I think. But I think that's a good place to leave that one. So we're going to move up to number 6 then on the list. And coming in at number 6, we have Birds of Prey. So
boy.
okay, so let me do that right. It's not just Birds of Prey, it's Birds of Prey, the fabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. Just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? This is the second movie on the list that I have not seen, ironically. So again, I'm gonna let you guys talk more about it than me. I will say, from what I've read and seen, of the movie, it's kind of, again, same thing with Wonder Woman 1984, but a little bit better. The reviews are mixed. I know this movie really tanked the box office. Like this movie, the opening weekend of this movie was like one of the worst opening weekends of the entire franchise of DC and superhero movies in general. So it tanked the box office, but I think after the fact when people saw it. The reviews, both fan and critic, got a little better. I think this was one of those movies where I think the fan reviews are a little more favorable than the critic reviews on this one. But yeah, like I said, from what I've seen of the movie, it did get very mixed reviews. Um, I don't know. I feel like based on where my biggest grievance that I have with this movie, having not seen it, is the fact that it kind of feels unnecessary to me, given where the DCEU is right now, or because this movie just came out recently, um, within the last year. It just felt unnecessary because the DCEU is kind of in a disheveled state, which is something I want to talk about. Um, at the end of the podcast, with it seeming with an apparent overall lack of focus in the DCEU by whoever's calling the shots. But I think that this movie was definitely unnecessary given, where things are. There's a lot of other movies that would have, if they're trying to do world building with the DCEU, that would have definitely or should have definitely come first before this movie. Like, I don't know, like, just off the top of my head, like maybe something to do with Green Lantern, maybe that would be nice. Something to do with Martian Manhunter, possibly. That might be nice. Maybe a Man of Steel sequel. That might be nice. Maybe a standalone Batman movie. That could be good. Maybe a standalone Flash movie for the DCEU. That might be a good idea. So there's
That's coming.
yeah, I know it's coming, but I'm saying
Yeah.
like they put. I know some of those things are on the table and are coming, but what I'm saying is, I feel like putting priority on doing Birds of Prey over all that stuff is just not good world building, in my opinion, and it's not like
I mean,
just
I
not a
don't
good
think it
idea for
was
the franchise as a
priority. I
whole.
just kind of think that's how that kind of fell in a circle, like.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but in any event, but like I said, I'll turn it over to you, Feltz, for more first, because I know this is the one I was gonna say. I know you're actually a pretty big fan, a very big fan
Yeah.
of this movie, actually. So I'll let you give us your thoughts on Birds of Prey.
I have absolutely no problem with Birds of Prey.
Hmm.
I loved it from beginning to end. I thought it was a nice little fun ride. I thought the story was good because it's being told from Harley Quinn, and Harley's messed up. So there's a reason the movie kind of doesn't make sense, and it jumps back and forth a lot, and it's because she's telling the story her way. I mean, maybe one thing I had a problem with is what they did to Black Mask at the very end, but that's another story. But no, I loved Birds of Prey, and I don't care. I have nothing bad to say about it at all.
Fair enough.
Not even about the man who played Black Mask.
No, I love him. I don't even care.
Mm.
I loved everything about this movie. I loved Huntress. Just, I loved it.
Just
I loved
sounds
it.
like kind of a mark out over here. So would you care to counterbalance that mark out, Mitch?
So here's the thing. There's not one person in the comics ever. Okay.
I'm sensing some more source material inconsistencies, is what you're trying to get to here.
Okay, so you got Black Mask. And you have Black Mask before he's a Black Mask. Now, Black Mask was ruthless prior and then becomes such. Now, here's the thing. It, I don't like how they make, the Suicide Squad or any independent sidekick hero a primary because, in my mind, that's
It's
not a thing.
it's just putting
Like,
too much focus on characters that don't deserve the focus, is what you're saying, I think. And I
not
generally
even
don't like
so
that
much
myself either.
like the way that it went about, like it was almost like you weren't even scared. Like if you knew who Black Mask was, you would be. Y- Does that make sense?
It
Like
makes sense to me.
the way that it was treated was like, okay, I have a mob boss that wants me to do whatever.
Mhm.
And then that mob boss, this happened, that happened, whatever. He becomes Black Mask.
Mhm.
My point is, like, you, first off, Birds of Prey was based off of the relationship between Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. And Ivy
Right,
wasn't
that
even
was
in
a
the movie.
right. That was a big key factor. So yeah, I think we lost Feltz as on a side note. Um, yeah, so we'll just
Oh,
keep.
did we?
Yeah, so we're gonna keep going. I'm communicating her with now. Um, but yeah,
We could try to get her back. Let's pull her back in.
looks like she might be
I
back
I,
already.
I know I had technical difficulties, so
Power issue. It's a nice little power.
power issues suck.
Gotcha. But you're back.
So,
Are you back for permanent now, or
yeah, she's back just like I was, motherfucker.
she came
So
back
listen to
faster than
me.
you though? See, so
I tried. I was messaging you though. I was trying to connect to
yeah,
you.
no, I was
And then
messaging
when
you
you
too, but I was also
and
trying
then
to
when you
keep the show going too. Um,
and then when you messaged me back, you said no, 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 table. I said, oh shit, you're right. I fucked up
That's
and
all
I
good.
fixed it.
So, but yeah, I think what you're saying with this is you know, with they didn't really do a good job with the villain, is what I'm hearing from you, and you know, that's important, I think, because you can't have a great story without at least a good villain, in my opinion, because that's kind of what drives the story with all this stuff is the
No, I
conflict,
agree,
you
but
know.
it's yes, it is about having a great villain and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is the way that they showed Harley's disrespect towards the Black Mask and like towards before who he even was before he became it,
Mm,
in my opinion, little bit of an issue because the Black Mask was someone in the comics that like no one really wanted to do business like the mafia did, but I'm talking like Joker, Harley, Two Face, Penguin. They
yeah,
didn't really mesh with the Black Mask because he was just really ruthless. So
yeah,
I think the fact that this movie, I believe it was rated what, PG-13.
I think so.
I think the fact that that was even a thing kind of ruined it because it's like, okay, um, that should not be the case.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying, and I think you guys kind of do it. You guys kind of give it, you know, really well. Yeah, you guys do it really well because you're kind of both coming from one end of the or two different ends of the spectrum. You know, with Felt's kind of just enjoying the ride and you know enjoying the Harley storytelling and all that, and you just like kind of looking for more accuracy and looking for like the nuts and bolts of it a little more. So I think you know that's good good place to leave it with this movie because you're both coming from different ends of the spectrum with it and not only that, but that feeds to this movie because it falls right near the middle of the list. It got a lot of mixed reviews from both fans and critics, so that it feels like it's in a pretty right spot where it is on the list. So, but moving on. We're going to get to number 5 on the list. And coming in at number 5, we have Man of Steel. So, of course, this is the first
Oh
movie
boy.
in the. We're
But
actually
did
getting
we
into
ever
some.
determine whether we lost Feltz or not? Because I haven't heard.
No,
Oh
she's
no,
back.
she's here.
She doesn't
She's here.
talk a lot
Oh,
anyway. But anyway,
quietness.
yeah, so this is actually
Quietness.
the first movie on the list that I think there's more positives than negatives about, and we're halfway through the list, so that just kind of speaks to the mixed bag that is the DCEU. But in any event, we're going to talk about Man of Steel. So it's been a while since I've seen this, as I'm sure it has been for both of you guys,
Yeah.
because this came out a while ago. But this was the first movie in the DCEU, actually. Came out in 2013, I believe. I actually thought this movie was pretty well done. I want to say I liked the story. I liked obviously the character. I think Henry Cavill is a pretty good Superman. I was a little disappointed that they didn't bring Tom Welling back for Superman, although that wasn't even on the table. And I know I'm maybe pulling from left field with that comment, but I really enjoyed Tom Welling. as Clark Kent / Superman, kind of, sort of, but not really Superman on Smallville. For even though that show really went to shit the last few years, but that's another story. So I really enjoyed that, and I thought he would have been the perfect choice to bring in. But I think Henry Cavill did a good job as Clark Kent / Superman. I think they did a
I'm gonna tell you right now, but
yeah.
I believe you now when you say you didn't want to shit on the.
You believe me now? Okay, so let me
Yeah,
finish my thought then.
just because of what you said, finish your thought. But
Yes.
I want you to know, between me and you, I get what you're saying, and I appreciate it.
All right. So, I will say I think they did a really good job of showing the humanity of Superman in this movie, and that is, like I said, that has always been both Superman's greatest strength and one of his greatest weaknesses. Because aside from kryptonite, obviously physically Superman is invulnerable, right? His kryptonite is his only physical weakness. You could argue he's kind of stupid.
No. It is not.
Whatever, more or less. So
no, not more or less.
Oh my god.
Kryptonite. What? Do you not want
kryptonite and magic? I get it.
Fine.
But, like, historically,
go ahead. No, it's kryptonite and what?
Magic.
And what?
Magic.
And lead?
Yeah,
no, it's not lead.
I didn't say lead.
Magic.
I mean, magic. He can't.
No, magic's not his only weakness either.
I didn't say only weakness, but traditionally
kryptonite,
speaking,
magic,
yes,
lead, and the red sun.
All right. Now that we have a full list that we didn't need, my point is, talking about Superman's humanity, is that that's always been a pretty sizable weakness of his too. I mean, you could argue his intelligence is a weakness too, and I would definitely argue that because he seems to make a lot of dumb decisions at a lot of points in time. But here I want to really focus on the humanity aspect of it. So, he is someone who cares, despite the fact that he's an alien. He cares very, very deeply about the people of Earth that he's trying to protect. And I guess, like I said, I think they did a really good job in this movie of conveying that, of portraying that in him. Some of the criticisms I saw of this movie, one of the big ones is that people felt that this was too generic of a movie. Like, it just felt like too generic of an action movie, while simultaneously being a little strange with, like, the way they did some of this stuff. Because I think this was Zack Snyder too. I think, right? So,
he did Man of Steel, yes.
Yeah. So, I do agree with that stuff to a point. It did feel kind of generic, but I would argue that Superman, like, can you really find a more generic superhero than Superman? So, like, if you're gonna have a generic action movie, like, it being about Superman kind of seems fitting, doesn't it? So, but yeah,
doesn't it not?
Yeah, it's very fitting, I think. So, but yeah, so they the little other problems. I like the fight scenes in this movie, though. Going back to the positives, like I said, I think this is definitely the first movie that we have to talk about that there's more positives than negatives. So I want to focus more on those. But yeah, I thought it had some really good fight scenes in it. And again, the story was good. It was easy to follow. It made sense. And it was pretty consistent with source material as well. So yeah,
you will not hurt my mother.
There you go.
Loved it.
So so I'll turn it over to you for more Felts. But yeah, I know you probably had close to the same reaction to this movie as I did.
Yeah, it's been a very long time since I've seen this, so I don't remember it as much as I wish I could. Like, I love.
Do you remember when they came to the farm, Felts?
What?
Remember when they came to the farm?
Yes.
And they tried to hurt his mother?
Yes, I remember. I remember bits and pieces of it. I remember the fight scenes. I remember...
That was the best scene, I think, ever, because...
Yeah.
Remember in the beginning of Man of Steel... Bernard, you watched Man of Steel, right?
I did. It's been a while, but I did.
Okay, so I know it's been a while for you guys, but it's been a while for me too, but I am like a DC nut, so to help both of you, remember I feel like what brought humanity to this whole movie was, and why Superman versus Batman and whatever was so dumb, was because seriously, was because, okay, so Superman was like trying to figure out who he was, went through whatever and met whatever and found a spaceship, whatever.
Yep.
But these people came But these people came to Earth and were like, we're going to fuck shit up if you don't come with us.
Yep.
Right? They're Kryptonian. They have the same abilities, but the difference between them and Superman is Superman grew up on Earth, so his Kryptonian cells absorbed more radiation than theirs. Therefore, he was technically stronger.
Yep.
Now, I think what makes Superman human, just like I feel any child, that protection complex of like, you're not gonna hurt my family.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think, like, Feltz, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Oh, it's okay.
no, I do apologize. But where I feel like you were going with that was kind of to the effect of like, because listen, Bernard is gonna want to shit on all of this. So what I'm saying is,
So much for believing me.
no, dude, I know you want to, because
I really
tell
don't.
me you don't got something bad.
Listen, man,
You
I
got,
will
you got
say
not,
I said my bad things. I gave my opinion already. I thought, kind of a little. My negatives were I thought it was kind of a little generic. Some of the stuff was a little strange. The way they shot stuff was a little strange, I think. But all in all, I really have not too much bad to say about this. I did like, if you want to go back to me
okay,
again,
so
I did like the ending
it,
about how he was very with the fighting and everything. I liked how he really didn't want to even hurt them. That was the thing. Like, he didn't want to kill
Mhm.
them, and it was only when it was at the last second that it was either he had to kill this guy or the civilians were going to die that he
okay,
finally
I love how you brought it right there. Let's hold it
decided
right
to
there for
do
one
it.
second.
Yep.
Because what have I always told you is the difference between DC and Marvel.
I don't want to guess. You just
I've
tell me.
always said, you don't have to guess, I'll tell you. I've always said Marvel has no problem, like their heroes can kill.
Yes. Yep, that is true.
DC, however, name a hero aside from like no hero that like actually kills anyone.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
come
now I
on.
know what you
You've got
mean.
Batman and the Joker. The Joker's like the serial whatever to whatever nightmare you have, and he
Hmm.
doesn't kill him.
Yep.
But what I'm saying
And you could
is,
argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that is definitely a
well,
distinction
what I'm
of
saying
DC
is,
versus
I feel
Marvel.
like
Yeah.
no, I don't argue that fact. And
Yeah.
Feltz, if you feel this, tell me. A hero is always supposed to be a level above the villain. Therefore, if the villain is willing to kill and the hero is not, that's what separates the two.
Mhm.
Both have abilities to cause destruction and damage. One chooses to save and one chooses to destroy. Therefore, what defines a hero? The person that destroys or the person? Because here's the reality: you kill a Joker, you kill a mob boss, you kill a gangster, you kill whatever, there's going to be someone to fill their place.
Yeah, and you're no better than them.
And you're no better than them. You know why you're no better than them? Because you've made the same decision they have made. You've literally said, okay, they've killed, they deserve to die, I'm going to kill them.
Exactly.
You're the judge, jury, the executioner. That's not what a superhero is.
Well, I
And
get where you're
that's
coming from. I do get where you're coming from. Like I said, I
no,
don't
no, no,
entirely
no. But
agree,
listen,
but
listen. But Phelps had an opinion on that. Am I wrong?
I heard it.
No.
I heard it.
That's what a hero is, right?
Yeah.
I would argue that that is definitely a big part of it, yes, but I would also argue that, being a hero or a marquee of being a hero is having the ability or the will to make the difficult decisions. So if someone is
The hard decision is the right decision
well, sometimes you need
every
to. I mean, the
time.
death penalty is a thing for a reason, man. In real life, if we're
Okay,
talking
but
about
that's a
that,
judge, that's a jury, and that's an
yeah,
executioner.
fair
That's not
enough.
one person making the call.
Fair enough. So, I don't
It's
know. I
like,
think
okay, I
I can
know
see
we're
both
not
sides of the
bringing up.
coin. I can see both sides
I
of the
know we're
coin. I
not
get it.
bringing up the most awesome superhero movies ever into this
Yeah.
conversation, but let's talk about real quick the Nolan series, the Heath Ledger, the Joker,
Uh huh.
and the interrogation scene.
Yeah.
What what power did Batman? All that power Batman has. all that strength. What did that have
Nothing.
against someone like the Joker?
Nothing.
Nothing. So,
And you could argue,
if the Batman in that moment had just decided enough's enough and killed the Joker thinking no one else would take his place, he's wrong. He's at the Joker's level. He's evil. He's bad. He's corrupt.
Yeah.
That's the difference, and that is why I favor DC, is because even though they call DC dark comics, our heroes don't kill people, and when they do, they become villains to the other heroes. And
Yeah,
in
I mean, like I
Marvel,
said,
it's not the same way.
like I said, I can see both sides of the coin. I think it really just depends on the situation personally. But you know,
Bernard, you've known me for 20 plus years.
yes,
A hero is someone who rises above.
I understand you feel that way. I'm not trying to argue with that. I understand that's how you feel about the situation and how you feel about these stories. Me personally, like I said, I feel it depends on the case. I think it's case by case. I think I can see both sides of it. I think there's certain situations depending on what the offense is. That it's not that's not the road you should go. I think there's other situations where this villain has committed crimes so heinous that they shouldn't be left to live, and that's a difficult decision that needs to be made by a hero in these stories. A lot of times, is they have to just
No. But that's where
feel
I
like they have to
disagree
get
with
rid
you.
of these people. And like I
No, but
said,
that's where I
I'm not.
disagree with
We'll
you,
be
and
here. We're already going to be here all
where
night with
I
this.
will
I really don't want to be
always.
here all
That's
night
fine.
with
We
this.
can end it here, but I will say this. That's where I will.
Well, looks like he disconnected again.
Did he?
Yeah, right as he was trying
no.
to make his big point. So I don't
Oh,
have to.
no.
Oh no. Well, it is what it is. This podcast is going to be very very long as is. Yeah, so I don't really want to spend forever talking about it, but I do feel that like I said, I could see both sides of the coin. It depends on the situation, it depends on the story, but at the end of the day, it's just I think it's a matter of personal preference. What you want to see, what stories you want to see your characters act out, and everybody's going to have their own personal preference when it comes to that sort of thing. So I mean, it is what it is. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that, Feltz.
No, I think I'm good on that.
Gotcha. Yeah, but all in all, trying to bring it back to topic again, with Superman, with the movie that we're actually supposed to be talking about, which is difficult, I suppose. And Johnny's not even here. So,
Pseudo Johnny.
and we're still
Pseudo
being.
Johnny.
What's that?
He's the pseudo Johnny.
I guess so. But yeah, just don't tell him that.
No, I won't.
He's gonna watch this back and hear that, and he's gonna not like you very much. But it is what it is. But yeah, so but yeah, as far as the movie goes, like I said, I thought it was good. I don't really have too much else to say about it other than
essentially, what I'm going to
if you
do
wanna
is
wrap
just
it up.
I'm going to start keeping my fucking mouth shut, because the second I get to a good point, I get disconnected.
Yeah,
and this is I almost it almost feels like it's on purpose.
It's really not, because like I'm just sitting.
I'm not gonna say it is. I'm not gonna say anyone's causing technical difficulty, but I feel like when I'm on a roll and I'm making a good point,
get better service.
Magically shit falls apart. My point is this, Bernard. Yes. The definition of a hero is someone who rises above.
Yes.
And the reason why I love Marvel, don't get me wrong. You got Iron Man, Captain America, you got a God of Thunder, you got Thor, you got awesome stuff.
Yep.
But the reason why I've chosen DC to be my favorite over Marvel is because, in my opinion, the true and the real heroes are in DC. And the reason I say that is because these heroes, no matter what, and it may sound crazy, why wouldn't you kill the Joker? Look at all the bad he's done. Someone's just going to take his place. Bad and evil is the war that never ends, the war between good and evil. But you have to choose a side. So if you're going to choose a side of the side of good, well, then you shouldn't de-escalate yourself to the level of evil. You shouldn't be able to kill. You shouldn't be able to break those kinds of rules.
Fair enough.
As a hero, you should be somebody who rises above. And even though it sounds nuts, as many times as it takes, you continue to fight against that evil.
Yep.
But you cannot define the rules. You can't change justice. But go ahead, go to the next movie. My point is that's why
Yep.
I am the way I am with DC, because
Yep.
in DC you don't have heroes that do what happens in Marvel. You know, you're not killing people. You're not. It's just
I get what
I
you're
don't know.
saying. I could rebuttal, but I really don't want to be here all night, and this podcast is going to
I
be
don't feel like you
absorbently long
could,
as
but
is.
we'll
So
have
we're going
that
to move on.
conversation.
On that note,
I
good
don't
point.
feel like you could, but we will have that conversation later. Go
All
ahead,
right.
move on to the
We've had
next
it
one.
many times already. So, but
And I've won every time, so go ahead, keep
in your
going.
own mind, yes, you have. So,
No, no,
um,
no, no, folks. Listen, folks. In his own mind,
I mean,
keep going, man.
I do have the ability to cut your mic, which is,
Rebuttal me then.
to be honest with you,
Mute
I
me again like
don't.
you have every time I've made
I
a good
actually
point. Because
haven't. And it's
apparently,
funny because now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know why I haven't muted you and or Johnny on this podcast multiple times at this point, since I do have that
wait,
power.
Johnny's on this
No,
podcast.
he's not on this one, but I'm saying like
Oh,
over
thank
the years
God.
of the captain's table. But in any event,
Sent me a
on that
friend
note,
request. I don't know what to do with it.
I don't know either. I can't answer that, but I will say we're going to move on from that. Those are all good points. Don't really have anything to do with Man of Steel, but good points
No, a lot of
nonetheless.
it did.
So,
But go ahead, keep
but
going.
yes. So,
True DC, true believers know.
all right.
True DC fans know.
So moving on,
Go for it.
we're going to go to number 4 on the list, and coming in at number 4, we have Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman movie, that is.
Oh
And this is
God.
the third and final movie that I have not seen on this list. So, again, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it myself. I will just say I know the reviews are incredible for this movie.
Nobody needs to spend too much time on
Well,
this movie.
all right.
This
So,
movie was
apparently,
done
Mitch is.
perfectly.
Yes. So, yeah. That is what I hear from most, that the movie was very well done in every respect. Now, it has great
Yes.
fan reviews, great critic reviews, the whole 9 yards. There's not much to criticize about this movie. So you might be wondering why it's number 4, kind of toward the a little toward the top, but more toward the middle of the list. So definitely could have been might be a little bit of a surprise to people that it might be coming in where it is.
Could be a little higher, but I do understand why you put it where you
The
put it.
movies that are above it, and this was kind of tough also, because the way I look at this list, there are basically like a few different
Hey,
sections of this list. So I think numbers 10 through 8 are irrefutably, as I've mentioned numerous times now, at the bottom. Then the next few that we just finished discussing were definitely middle of the road movies, I think. And then the
but you'd
last
have to
few,
agree that this movie
yeah.
was up against kind of a titan. You know
It's
what I
yeah.
mean?
This movie is up against some stiff competition, because now, as I mentioned in Man of Steel, now we're actually getting into DCEU movies that are actually good.
Right.
So there is some actual, believe it or not, because a lot of people, what, I can understand your chip on your shoulder that you have, Mitch, because a lot of people, myself included, at times, are willing to just write the DCEU off as just complete garbage. And to be honest with you, that's part of the reason for doing this list, is to answer that question, I think, to the fans, is the DCEU really as bad as people think it is? And to be honest, when we're going to get into the top half of this list, the argument that I would make is no, I don't really think it's as bad as people think it is.
Oh
I
man,
think that yes,
I'm shocked.
there's been a lot of turds, there's been a lot of bad movies, there's been a lot of questionable movies, and I think there's legitimate reasons for all that stuff. But I think when you get toward the top half of this list, you really are getting into some pretty good stuff, honestly. So, um, But yeah, I can't really say too much else about Wonder Woman aside from that. Aside from that, because I didn't see it. I will say some criticisms of the movie thought that it was too, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it pandered too much, kind of like it was a little too much on the nose with like the maybe perhaps social messages that it was trying to convey and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, I don't really see too many criticisms of this movie. All in all, um, but anyway, I'll turn it over to you, Feltz, if you want to talk about Wonder Woman and what you liked or disliked about it, if anything.
I
I'm right
mean,
here with you, Phelps. Listen,
beautifully written, perfect. I just
yes.
nothing. You're gonna hear nothing bad about that movie from
So
me
talk
at
about what you
all.
did like about it then.
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen that one as well,
Okay.
but I do remember like the way they wrote Wonder Woman. To me, she was perfect. She was
It,
the
it was a
epitome of Wonder Woman.
masterpiece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the only thing I might have had the problem was Ares, but
Hmm.
Ah, okay. I love that you said that.
maybe. Like I go back and
No,
forth,
don't
right?
get me wrong. Didn't you expect Ares to be more of like an dominating or intimidating figure?
Yes.
And he kind of came off as kind of like just someone randomly Wonder Woman would be able to like just take on her own.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I agree with you. Like Ares was kind of like I can see it, but you know what? You know who you remind me of? Steppenwolf.
A little bit, yeah, yeah.
I don't
You
think
But a
that's a
know,
better
good thing
version
and
of Steppenwolf.
necessarily.
no, but that's not a good thing because at the same time, like, sure, it was a great movie. It touched all the points, but what makes a great movie? When you have a great hero, does not a great villain make a great movie?
Hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm hearing the villain was kind of lackluster. Yeah,
And that was
that's fair.
really the only complaint.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Yeah, another.
that was honestly the only complaint is that the villain was like, eh,
Yeah, and I
because
think yeah, I think that
like at
another
the end he
positive.
came in, he was
Yeah.
like the doctor and the thing, and he was like, oh, brr, and all of a sudden he turned into Ares. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think another,
okay.
feeding back to the positives, I think um, I will say that it definitely the way that they wrote Wonder Woman, not only that, but the way they did the costume was a big thing that everybody was a big fan of, that they enjoyed, because they were
Yeah, it was
kind of, I guess
great.
people were kind of worried about them making the costume too revealing or whatever, but they made it kind
Well,
of more
I mean,
conservative, which people were happy about.
I
Um,
mean, if you want to get into the source material of it, they
yeah.
definitely missed every point on that.
So that's a little bit of a
No,
negative
no,
for you
I'm
then,
being
maybe.
honest. No, 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 not negative. I agree with the New World and
The New World
you
Order.
know, no, not New World Order, but
I
like,
was making a wrestling joke, but anyway.
well, you know me, I'm not into your gay porn, but here's the
Oh my
thing.
god.
um, Bernard, you could not have expected to bring that up to me
I
and
mean,
expect
the
me to refer to it.
NWO, right? Come on, like that's
Come
I threw you a
on, dude.
softball. I know you were a wrestling fan back in the
You're
'90s. Like
not throwing me a
that was a
softball.
softball.
You're throwing
Whatever,
me Hulk Hogan, who
whatever, man.
like
Look at all
at
I'm trying to say. At the end of the
67
day,
years
listen,
old
listen,
is
listen,
making a
listen, listen,
comeback.
listen.
But
This is not about
anyway,
wrestling. This is not about wrestling. That was just a joke. Listen, what
my
I'm trying
point
to say
is,
is there's definitely more. I think at the end of the day, there's definitely this movie. Though I haven't seen it, what I'm hearing from everyone, you guys included, is it was just a masterfully done. And I think, I almost wanted to rank this movie higher. I did want to rank this movie higher, but the
the
movies
only
that are,
problem in this
yeah,
movie was the villain.
yeah. And I think another reason why this movie is not a little bit higher on the list, is that the movies that are above it just kind of edged it out, I would say. But I will say another big selling point about this movie that we didn't touch on was that this was actually the first legitimately very good, if not great, movie that DC had put out since The Dark Knight. And that was in 2008. And this movie came out in what, 2016, 2017, somewhere in there? Or was it 2018? I think it was
I don't really remember,
2017,
damn it.
actually. Yeah, it was somewhere around there. I think it
Uh,
was 2017 that this came out. So, in nearly a decade, this was actually the first really good, if not great, DC live action that they did. So this movie, I think, gave hope and proof that DC could actually still do live action right. So for that reason, personally, I probably would have put this movie a little higher. I know it was really a hard decision between these top movies, honestly. But again, not having seen the movie, for me, it's like I can only go based on what I've seen and heard of it from you guys and the critics and whatnot. So, but yeah, that's kind of where it sits. I guess we don't really have too much else to say about it. So we're going to move on from there. We're going to move on to number 3 on the list. And coming in at number 3, we have the Justice League Snyder Cut. So there's going to be a lot to talk
Boy.
about this one. We already started talking about it before with the the original version of Justice League. So obviously this is a huge jump because the original Justice League clocked in at number 9 on the list. The Snyder Cut clocks in at number 3, so obviously a huge jump.
Now, this is why we couldn't really talk too much on the Justice League.
Yeah.
Now we can legitimately have a conversation on it.
Right. So I will say this. I will say that this movie is significantly better, obviously. However, there are still problems. This movie did address a lot of the problems that the original had. It fixed a lot of those issues. However, it did not fix them all, and it introduced a couple of additional problems, in my opinion. So,
now, is this a movie you have not actually seen this
okay,
movie
so
yourself?
this is the technicality on the list. I will tell you guys the technicality. I watched the original Justice League beginning to end. I YouTubed all of the new clips that the Snyder Cut had to offer. However, I did not sit there and watch the Snyder Cut from start to finish because I felt that it would be a waste of my time to sit
But
there
what
for
I
4
what I
plus
do
hours.
understand is that
But I've
Sam
seen all the new
did she
material.
not?
I did.
Yes, you guys wasted your money on
So
HBO
what
Max, and you sat
what I
there and
think
watched
should
it.
happen is I think Sam should
Sham.
state her point.
Yeah,
Sham.
no, you're gonna do that. We're gonna do this the way we've been doing it. So I just have to make a few points. I have to say, so
Listen,
um,
everybody knows I'm Bernard Stoner friend.
problems, yeah, problems. All
Listen.
right, let me just go here. Problems this movie fixed. Obviously, a lot of the backstory with Cyborg, Flash, Aquaman, all the characters. They fixed a lot of that, right, with the extended cut. Yes, no argument there. That's definitely
Not
better.
only did they fix it, they fucking
Yes,
like
Dark
people are
Side.
now requesting. No, people are now requesting independent origin stories from this movie.
Yeah, but you
Like,
know, it would have made a lot of sense if they would have done some independent fucking origin stories before they made this movie. You know, that would have made a
well,
lot of
here's the
sense.
thing. Here's the
Which,
thing,
yeah.
dickhead. They were focused on their animated series, which is wiping you guys
You
off
know
the
what?
fucking
When you
face of the
come to
map.
animated versus live action, that's like comparing apples to smaller apples. But we won't get into that discussion.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Our
because
apples are bigger, but
no,
it's fine. Go
obviously live
ahead.
action is the big apple. But in any event,
Hmm.
so, like I said, obviously they fixed a lot of problems with the story, with the inconsistencies. They made it make sense. Everything with Darkseid, obviously, a million times better. They actually talk about Darkseid, and they actually reveal what the actual plot of the movie is and talk about it, which is good. They fixed most of the inconsistencies and problems with the story, with the characters, the whole 9 yards. That's awesome. So issues I have: the length of this movie, number one. So being over 4 hours, that is a problem for me because that is much
Oh yeah,
longer than a
because
reasonable.
if they put Endgame and Infinity War
Well,
together,
that's
wouldn't
not a
it be the
fair
same amount of
comparison,
time?
but those were two
Ah,
separate movies.
come on.
So in any event, a 4 hour runtime or over 4 hour runtime for a singular movie is a problem for me. I think that's unreasonable. Now, this is the problem that was created by them rushing into doing the Justice League, though, is that you were going to have a problem either way, because if you did the Justice League the way Joss Whedon did it, you were going to have a bunch of shit that didn't make sense because you didn't do origin stories for heroes or take the time to explain the plot. So that's a problem. Or if you did it the Zack Snyder way, the problem was going to be the movie was going to be too damn long. So I think it's obvious by the ranking on the list that the
But
lesser of two evils
you
is
act like Zack
definitely.
Snyder had a choice, though.
No, he didn't, and that's what I'm saying. The Justice League was put in a shitty spot by not Man of Steel, by Batman versus Superman. It was put in a shitty spot because the fact that DC was trying to push it out as fast as they could. They didn't want to take the time to do it right. They didn't want to take the time to make the origin stories for the heroes, and they put themselves in a situation that they were going to be screwed in a sense either way. Having said that, I will say obviously the better of the two choices what Zack Snyder did, which was the original plan for the movie, which was to make it a bazillion hours long and actually explain the backstories of the characters and the plot. So that's obviously
Uh,
a way better way to go than what Joss Whedon did. So, which is why this movie ranks so much
so
higher
here's the thing,
than the
right?
original.
Zack Snyder didn't plan on making it zillion hours long.
Hmm.
He got kicked off the movie, dude.
I understand that. So, but he was the original director of the movie, yes. So,
Yeah.
No, he was a co-director.
whatever. Listen, my point. You're wasting our time picking these nits that don't matter, and this movie,
How?
this
How?
podcast
That,
is going
I
to be
feel like
longer than the
that's an
fucking Snyder
important
cut
factor.
for some. But by the time this podcast is done, it's going to be longer than the Snyder cut. I guess that's your goal, to make the Snyder cut look reasonable by having this podcast be a
Well,
zillion hours long. But anyway, my point, to finish my point, and then I'm going to throw it over to you guys.
I feel so alone.
This thing is, well, it's 'cause-
Sam.
He doesn't listen to me, okay?
hey, I'm the
I
captain here. I don't
force him
listen to
to
nobody.
say something.
Well, listen, to finish my thought, though. Yes, the Snyder Cut fixed a lot. There were still some problems. They still obviously didn't fix the whole debacle with Green Lantern, although, yes, they did add Green Lantern scenes of indiscriminate Green Lanterns, which, in my mind, does not in any way, shape, or form make up for the absence of either a Hal Jordan or a John Stewart Green Lantern as a co-founder of the Justice League. They had the Martian Manhunter scene, which I thought was cool, that they showed him. But I will say, as far as I'm going to pick the nit just a little more with the whole cyborg thing versus Green Lantern and the whatever. If you were not going to have Green Lantern in this movie, okay? If you decided that the 2010 Green Lantern was so bad that you did not want to have the Hal Jordan Green Lantern in this movie, you should have had the John Stewart Green Lantern in this movie. But if you decided that the 2010 Green Lantern was so bad that you didn't want to have any Green Lantern in this movie whatsoever, the next logical choice in my mind to fill that sixth seat at the table for the Justice League would have been Martian Manhunter, because he is a very long-standing senior member of the Justice League. So why not use him as the sixth man instead of Cyborg? It just feeds back to my earlier complaining that Cyborg was the 100% wrong choice for that sixth spot in this movie, and that will create huge inconsistencies leading into the future if they do something live action with Teen Titans in the DCEU, and even just with the Justice League progressing forward at this point. That is a big problem for me, and that is something that the extended cut could not fix, of course. But again, having said all of that, it is still definitely much better, although the addition of more Jared Leto Joker was definitely a negative as well. But
Ah, 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 ah.
I think he does it better than Leto. I'm not gonna lie.
For the
Thank you.
record, that
Appreciate
one
it.
wasn't Leto.
Was it? Wasn't it?
No, you want to hear the Joaquin Phoenix? Ready? Right?
I don't want to hear the Joaquin Phoenix because we're not talking
You
about
do
that.
though. You do. You want to hear
I really
You want to
don't.
hear
I
this?
really don't. I
You
really
want to
don't.
hear?
I want to throw it over to Feltz is what I want to do to get her take. Bravo. Having said all of that, I would like to throw it over to Feltz, as I said, to give.
That's fine. Throw it over to whoever you want.
Yes, I'm
that
throwing
was
it
a
over.
dead-on Joaquin Phoenix laugh right
I
there.
actually like your Leto impersonation better than your Phoenix impersonation.
Are you
but
serious?
I do, just because the Leto
Feltz,
is so.
what's your thoughts?
Just because the Leto is so terrible, I like your impersonation better because it's actually funny. Because the Joaquin Phoenix Joker is legitimately really good. So I mean, I'm not saying your impression of it is bad, but I'm saying there's not really the humor value. Anyway, gonna throw it over to Feltz Wild now, so she can
Just
give
say
us
my
her.
impression is
Every
horrible.
time I
That's
try to
fine.
throw it over to Feltz
That's
Wild,
fine.
though, you want to interrupt me. So I guess you're just filling Johnny's shoes in this podcast,
Oh
apparently.
yeah.
So I guess we're
compare me to John again.
for the
Go ahead, I
millionth time.
dare
Well,
you.
Feltz did it when you were off camera, but that's another story.
Oh, way to throw me under the bus.
No problem. So with that being said, for the millionth time, I'm going to attempt to throw it over to Feltz Wild to get her take on the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League, because this was actually her number one on her personal list. So go for it.
Oh, sorry. So much better.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I'm going to say. It is so much better than what we got. The story was, it made sense. It was consistent. I mean, the music was okay, but like you even get to see Darkseid. It's not even It's not the fact that he's mentioned. You get to see him. Not a lot, of course, but you see the actual villain, and what he's trying to do makes sense, and you get his backstory. And yes, I understand the Green Lantern thing, and yes, it sucked, but you do get
I know what you're saying. They fixed a lot of the problems. I do appreciate that you get to see Darkseid for sure. That's a really nice teaser to the future. Absolutely.
I mean, it's made it so much better that apparently Warner Brothers is reconsidering, and we're going to get a Snyder series, like a Snyder Justice League series.
Nice.
The Snyderverse.
Yes, I did hear about that.
Bernard would not know that. The captain would not know that. You know why? Because he's got his head shoved so far up a dead man's ass.
The time didn't even bother me.
Who's the
I
dead
felt
man?
It went by so fast.
Who's the dead man?
Yeah. You got your head shoved so far up Stanley's ass.
Stan Lee. Hey, man, I will never remove my head from Stan Lee's ass. Stan was the man.
You need to, because you need to. You know why you need to?
Never gonna happen.
Here's the thing, Stan Lee.
Oh,
and
who
you know
founded
what?
DC?
For the
That's
record,
right. Nobody knows and nobody cares.
For the record, you interrupted Phelps this time, not me, just for the record.
All right.
Point being, Stan Lee, I'm not even gonna go there. We're talking about DC.
Yes.
And you interrupted Phelps, and that was your call.
All right, Phelps. Michael Phelps, please continue.
Oh, wow, thanks.
No problem.
I was just gonna say, that's kind of messed up.
Well, you said Phelps, so I just made a joke. Anyway.
Well, isn't it Phelps?
It's Phelps, not Phelps. Whatever. It
That's
was a joke.
What I said.
It was
Phelps.
a joke. It was a joke.
Phelps. You not hear me?
Just
say
like these
Phelps?
DC movies, the humor is really lacking here. I got to tell you guys. So.
I guess so, man, because no one's listening to me.
So.
But I did say.
Do you have anything else you want to say about the Snyder cut, Phelps?
I mean, did you hear what I said about the time?
The Snyderverse, yeah. I am interested by that. I will say that if he can manage to make movies that are a reasonable length, that would definitely be a nice thing.
Oh my God, he had no choice. I will not stand here and let you just be like.
I know.
He had no choice.
I don't think he would have made it this long, even if he stayed at he would have condensed it, but it still would have made a hell of a lot more sense.
Yeah, I understand he was. I understand he was put in a shitty position, and he did what he could. I get that, and maybe in the
put in a shitty position, Bernard. It's like going on a trouble call, but nothing was done during the install.
Pretty much, cable reference there.
I got that.
But yeah, would you like to give us your thoughts on the Snyder cut there, Mitch? Because I know you've ranked it pretty high as well.
All right. So I like the Snyder cut. I liked how he took each hero and kind of made you feel for him. I like how he kind of broke it all down the way that it should have been, but over, obviously, the way Marvel did it with, independent movies at a time. But this man literally took a movie that was already made, and he took scenes from that movie that was already created, scenes that were thrown to the side. No good. And he took all of this and he made a movie that was better than the original. Granted, it was 2 times the amount of the original, but it was better. And the reason why that I say I find that better, or I find that more,
Commendable, maybe.
I enjoy it more because I feel like that was harder.
Yeah.
I feel like what he did was more difficult.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I mean, I think they did do some reshoots for that too, didn't they? For the Snyder cut, didn't they reshoot some stuff also, in addition to using a lot of unused footage? Anybody?
No, no, no. They
No.
didn't. They
They didn't
didn't
do any
do
reshoots. Okay, I thought they
reshoots.
did a couple
No, no,
reshoots. So it was all
no.
just
I think
previously. It was all previously
All
unused
Zack
footage.
Snyder was able to do
Okay.
was take his scenes, the scenes that were in the movie, and then deleted scenes
Right.
and whatnot. All he was really able to do was like mend that shit
So he
and
was
try to be
basically
like,
all the
okay.
king's horses and all the king's men putting Humpty Dumpty together again. Is what you're saying.
He was trying to salvage
Yeah,
something, you
Yeah,
and
know.
he did.
and like I said, I give it to him. He did do a very good job with what he had to work with, absolutely. And I will give him that. Like I said, my grievances are what they are with the movie, but all in all, I do think he did a very good job with it, and I do think that um, you know continuing with the Snyderverse is probably the best way that they can go with the DCEU at this point. So definitely on board with
Well,
that.
that's the problem though. You
Yeah.
have so many chiefs, not enough Indians.
Yeah, that's as the old saying goes. Yeah, that can definitely be an issue, or is definitely an issue here.
And that no, that is the issue when it comes to DC, because you
Yeah.
have a hero that says, "Okay, I'm going to play this," and then you have a hero that says, "I'm going to play this," and you have a hero that says, "I'm going to play this,"
Hmm.
and then 2 years later, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, not keeping actors in roles has been a big problem. I mean, at the end of it, when we're done with the list, I'm going to get to some, general comments about the DCEU as well, because, like I said, it's definitely a roller coaster. It's a mixed bag. But yeah, I think that pretty well sums up the Snyder cut. We did talk about it some before with the Justice League, and even though technically it's the same movie, they do actually get their own separate ratings and rankings on online on Wikipedia and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely that's why we were going to rank them differently here. And as you guys pointed out, and as I will agree, it is essentially a completely different movie because, like you said, Mitch, it's twice the length of the original. They added so much content. It's actually, to be honest with you guys, and I didn't even think about this until now, it's kind of crazy how much stuff they deleted. Like
Hmm.
to think that they could double the length of the movie by adding in just deleted scenes. I think that might have been why I thought they did some reshoots too, just because of the sheer amount of new stuff that they added. So that just speaks to how crazy that is that was all just deleted scenes and unused footage. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good place. Like I said, it's definitely a massive improvement over the original, but still leaves some stuff to be desired. Like I said, there are still some problems and inconsistencies that they could not fix just because of the box they were put in. But in any event, we're gonna move on. So we're up to number 2 here on the list, and coming in at number 2, we have Aquaman. So this is a movie that I've seen just recently, actually. And I have to say, I was actually very impressed with this movie, much more so than I thought I would be. Um, a lot of positives, a lot of good came out of this movie. It had, the obvious, the good action, the good fight scenes. It had a good story that flowed pretty logically from start to finish. It was pretty accurate to the source material as well, in terms of a lot of different things, except for one or two specific things, which I'll get to when I talk about the negatives. Um, the humor in this movie was actually very good, and that's one thing I did mention earlier. The humor in the DCEU or in DC in general is pretty lackluster most of the time. But I will say I did quite enjoy the humor in this movie. There were some hits, some misses, but at the end of the day, I think they were mostly hits with the jokes in this one. which is good because, like I said, humor has been an issue historically in the DCEU, or DC in general. But again, as to the point that I know you'll make, Mitch, when talking about this, is it is hard to just jam jokes in and interject humor into a lot of these characters and stories because they're just not written that way by design. And they're, a lot of times in DC, it's much more tragic stories than we deal with versus
Well, I
Marvel.
mean,
So
even something as simple as Aquaman.
yeah,
But I'll let you finish your point. But
yeah.
I'm
So
saying
so those are
I just want to address, like,
yeah,
but when we bring this up, think of something as simple as freaking Aquaman, and you're gonna see a dark side to it. Go for it.
exactly. So yeah, so those are all the positives. I think Jason Momoa did a good job. He was the right guy for the version of Aquaman they were going for. And I think, and this was actually, and I didn't know this, this was actually the highest grossing DCEU movie of any of them, was this, despite how people loved Wonder Woman, despite how everything else in the DCEU, this movie made more money than any of them. So that says something right there. I will say that, and I think a lot of that has to do with the all the huge fandom that Jason Momoa has. Just that his name probably was a big reason for a lot of that money. But that was their plan, and it worked. So I give it to him. But as far as the negative goes, I do have a few negatives. And speaking of Jason Momoa, that is actually a positive yet also a negative that I have about this movie because for those of you who are familiar with the source material of Aquaman, you will know that is not the Aquaman's physical appearance has changed quite a lot over the years, okay? And the Jason Momoa where Aquaman kind of looks like a pirate with like the long hair and the long beard and like the tattoos, and he's kind of like wisecracking, and he's like, oh well, if that's not good enough, then fuck you, like that. Like that's not like the design and the attitude of classic Aquaman. So classic Aquaman is short blonde hair, blue eyes. He's kind of like a Boy Scout, like goody two shoes type personality, I would say. So
He's a pretty boy.
yeah, pretty boy. So he's not. So that's classic Aquaman, and like I said, his character, his design, and his personality has changed quite a lot over the years. And the version of Aquaman that Jason Momoa is playing is obviously like more of a new age Aquaman, where like I said, he's got like the long hair and the beard, dark hair. He's got like all the tattoos and stuff, and he's more like a wise ass kind of thing, or like a derelict at times, I guess you would say. Um, and so it kind of does bug me because although I'm not quite the purist for the source material that Mitch is, it does kind of bug me that they just cut straight to that version of Aquaman. Like they didn't do any ode to the original design of the character. And the best example or comparison that I can give for the MCU is that would have been the equivalent in my mind of like in the original Thor movie, like back in 2011, when Thor comes out for his coronation, essentially in Asgard, like he comes out with like the long hair and like the really really thin beard and like the helmet with the wings and like the whole costume, the whole 9 yards, vintage classic Thor. That would have been the equivalent. This is the equivalent of instead of that, if he would have walked out in the beginning of the first Thor movie as like Thor from Ragnarok, essentially, where he has like the short chopped up hair and like the thicker beard, and he's like more like battle hardened, he's missing the eye, like that kind of thing. Like that would have been the equivalent, is if they would have started with that Thor. And I don't like that because that deprives the character of a lot of character progression, of building, of growing and changing. So for that reason, I kind of don't like why they just jumped right to that version of Aquaman. Although I will say I understand why they did it because the newer Aquaman's much more popular with the newer generation than the classic vintage Aquaman is. Um, and with the feel that they're going for in the DCEU, they're trying to give us the newer versions of characters, it feels, or the old, I guess the as like the characters that, like, not the ground zero version of the characters, like with Ben Affleck's Batman. Even like they're trying to give us like an older hardened Batman. It's kind of doing the same thing with Aquaman. So I get why they did that, and especially if they wanted Jason Momoa to play him. Like obviously Jason Momoa does not have blonde hair and blue eyes, so that wouldn't have really worked out too
Red
well.
streaks.
He
Red
does,
streaks.
yeah, but I'm saying like if they were trying to do classic Aquaman, trying to shape him
Bro,
into
come on,
classic
bro.
Aquaman, it wouldn't have worked.
What woman doesn't like Jason
Well,
Momoa?
there you
Maybe
go, and
they're
that's why it
reaching
made.
out.
I'm sure that's one of the
Maybe
reasons
they're
why it made
reaching
so
out
much
to a
money.
different demographic, you know?
Yeah, and like I said, I totally get that. I totally understand that. I can't even fault them for it. But that is a negative of the movie to me, is that they didn't do that that ode to the original design of the character. Other couple negatives that I had. I mentioned the humor is a big positive. In certain spots, I felt like it was a negative because some of the jokes kind of fell flat. I thought like there weren't too many of them, but there were a couple that I was like, that's not really funny, but whatever. I thought the underwater CGI was kind of weird at times. Like I didn't really like it, like the aesthetic that underwater CGI gave at certain points in the movie. And the last thing I want to mention is, um, in the design of the movie and the feel of the movie, it uh, kind of just felt like they were like trying to, how do I put it? I don't want to say rip off, but they were it felt like they were drawing like a lot of inspiration, maybe a little too much from both, like, speaking of the original Thor movie, like the original Thor movie and the Black Panther movie, as far as like how they did their world building and stuff, um, and even just like the general outline of the movie. But I'll throw it over to you for more, Felts, if you want to talk about Aquaman, because I know you were a pretty big fan of this movie as well.
Yeah, I was. I enjoyed it. I went in. It was one of those ones where, I didn't think it was going to be any good, because
Because it's
I was
Aquaman,
pleasantly
right?
surprised.
And it's
Yeah, I was
DC.
pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely there, and that's why I actually resisted watching this movie for a very long time, as Mitch will
Oh,
tell you. As
because it's
soon as
Aquaman
I
and
was like, it's
because it's
Aquaman, who
DC.
fucking cares, you know?
Oh
But
yeah, who cares?
yeah,
Who
but I will
cares?
be the first one to
Kiss
tell
my
you
ass,
that it
bro.
was the movie 100% surpassed my expectations. So I get you there completely, Felts, with that.
I told him that they would. He didn't believe me though.
Yeah,
I literally told him, I was like, bro, you're gonna love this movie.
I think I
No.
probably told him that too.
you
Because
probably
they
did.
got saw it before him.
Yeah, I mean, I just
He
saw
can
it a
be.
couple weeks ago, so
He
it's.
can be pretty
Yeah.
stubborn at times.
Oh, I know.
Well, I won't fight you guys on that. But yeah, is there anything in particular you liked or didn't like about it, Felts?
I've only seen the movie maybe like 2 or 3 times, so I don't remember it that well.
Okay.
I can't
That
say I'm
seems
an
like a
expert on it
recurring.
or anything.
I've only seen the movie multiple times.
Yes.
I'm not an expert on it by any means.
Fair enough. So,
So,
Mitch,
I mean, I thought it was a good story.
Yep.
Not a fan of Mira for a couple different reasons.
Amber Heard, the most hated woman on the planet, or close to
Oh,
it.
don't get me started on her, please.
Oh,
Let's
please.
get that started.
Please tell us your opinion of Amber Heard.
Tell us,
I think
please.
Scum.
Yeah. As most
We
people.
would like this opinion. This will create controversy.
Well, controversy sells, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, I guess I liked the character. She's not the greatest actress in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna.
Well, they did
hate
recast
the
her,
character
so
because I don't like her.
you won't have to see her anymore because
No,
she's out
she's
of
not
there.
recast.
Isn't she? I
Yes,
thought
she
they did
is.
boot her.
I have not heard this.
I have.
Gotcha.
Good.
I thought they did say they were. I mean, I don't think they've announced a replacement for her, but I think they announced that she wasn't going to be coming back. And honestly, if she does come back, I say shame on them because she did some very, very shitty things that, you know,
Yeah,
I'm not
really
I'm not a fan of cancel culture here, but I will say that she did some very shitty things, and I think that they should probably get rid of her because of it. So.
Regardless to all that.
Yep.
I think it was Emilia Clarke. Yeah, Emilia Clarke is the head replacer.
All right. It's Bert coming through.
I thought that was rumored, but I'm gonna. You guys talk. I'm gonna go.
Well, you're coming through with some actually useful and relevant information, Mitch. So I applaud you for that. Would you like to take your turn? I know, right? What are the odds? only like 2.5 hours in. But anyway,
I literally just looked it up, and they said that, and that's what was being said.
I appreciate it.
So I was like,
So if you,
yeah,
but yeah, if you want to give your opinion on Aquaman, because I know you actually on your personal list ranked this as number one for you.
yeah.
So
No, I genuinely enjoyed Aquaman because most people would think, oh, Jason Momoa, whatever, fan base. No, that wasn't what it was for me.
mhm,
For me, it was the fact that the movie actually showed how badass Aquaman on his own could be. Like
mhm,
when he fought right in the beginning,
yeah,
and created the enemy of, spoiler alert, uh, when he created the enemy of Black Manta,
mhm.
in my mind, I'm like, wow, like,
Yeah, no, that was a good
I,
scene. That definitely
well,
one.
you have to ask yourself a general question, at this point in time, you have to say, okay, what if I was in that position? You know what I mean? Well, like, what if I could actually have help,
Mhm,
but because whatever reason, I chose not to,
yeah,
and then that reason caused whatever the fuck I had going on in that moment in my life. Like that reason was enough to, you know,
yeah, to
I
come
feel
back
like
on him.
that,
And I think we
yeah,
we had
because it
that
came
literally
back
happened. I think
on
he
him in a
said
hard
that
way.
actually.
Like
Yeah, he even said that.
it's
I
almost,
think.
it's just that's just how DC works. You know what I mean? Like DC, the heroes create the villains. I don't know if
Right.
that's been like recognized as far as DC goes, but that's kind of how it
A lot of
works. Like,
times, yeah, a lot of times that is the case with them. And yeah, I think in the one scene
I mean,
where they were in,
look at the
yeah,
most common one in general. Oh, okay. Uh, Batman versus Superman, dumb.
yeah,
But you got fucking Batman versus the Joker. Oh yeah, we expected that to happen.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's my point.
Yeah, and they even
Is
talked about that when they were in the scene in Italy where they were cheesily falling in love in Italy. And they got attacked by Black Manta and the Goon Squad or whatever.
yeah.
I think he actually did say that. He's like, I did this, like I create, and he had that realization even that like my
He flat out said it.
actions
He
or
was
lack
like,
thereof,
he
like
was like, yeah, I could have done this. And she's like, oh, it's not your fault. And he's like, yeah, but I could have, like,
could have saved his
it
dad,
could
and
have
I
been
didn't.
different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Like,
So he
I
even had that
chose.
moment, which I can definitely appreciate. And then I know you also like all the stuff with Ocean Master was like very
Oh
was
my
very spot
God,
on.
Ocean Master, the costume. Oh, fucking forget about it. The costume they had with Ocean Master, his the mask, his armor, the way he acted, his hair, even the way that his hair tied
Yeah,
with that weird tight braid in the back, but whatever. He had a lot of hair, but
yeah,
it was tied back. Like that shit just was so on point. They
yeah,
they did Ocean Masters so well that I feel like that's how they got away with not doing Aquaman blonde hair, blue eyes, like,
yeah. They did do,
muscular body.
although they didn't do that part of Aquaman right. They did do the suit right. I'll give them credit for that. They did the suit
You know what else they did right
very well.
though? They also did someone who was like very statuesque
Yeah.
and very built.
Well, yeah, I mean the physique of Jason Momoa is definitely perfect for the role as well. And even like I said, that's why it's a double-edged sword for me because Jason Momoa is the perfect guy in my opinion to play like that newer version of Aquaman. But like I said, the rub
Right.
for me is them starting with the new version of Aquaman. But yeah, I did like the
Yeah.
suit a lot when he finally got the suit toward the end of the movie. The other
Oh
thing
yeah, like right at the end of the movie.
Yeah, the other thing I didn't realize actually is this movie has quite a
Spoiler alert.
stacked. Yeah, this movie. I don't think you have to worry about that since this movie is like 3, 4 years old at this point. Um, But yeah, the other thing that I didn't realize about this movie is that this movie actually has quite a stacked cast, honestly. Like, which it was a little of a surprise to me, even because it had Jason Momoa, Willem Dafoe as kind of like a side character, but like an important side character. The guy I don't
Right.
know, the guy Tierra Morrison, somebody, the guy who played Boba Fett. Um, Slash Django Fett from Star Wars. Slash,
Yep.
I don't know
Yep.
how to say his name because I'm an idiot.
Why
But
did I not notice that?
you didn't notice that he was Aquaman's
No!
dad.
I
He was Aquaman's
didn't
dad.
notice that at
You
all!
saw the movie more than I did,
I am ashamed of myself.
as you should be.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then I mean, even Amber Heard, before everything was relatively big name, what. So yeah, there's and quite a stacked cast. So yeah, really good movie overall. But yeah, I think that will bring us to our number one on the list, which was actually my number one on my list, and after much consideration, because it was pretty hard. Like I said, these top movies, like these top four movies, I want to say were just edge each other out a little bit. I think at the end of the day, I ultimately decided that this movie had to be number one because I had less bad things to say about this movie. Because I had quite a lot of good things to say about all these top four movies. Um, Wonder Woman at 4, Justice League Snyder Cut at 3, and Aquaman at number 2. But I do have some pretty strong criticisms of most of those movies. This one, I really don't have that. So I'm going to do something different here for our number one entry on the DCEU Power Rankings list, and I want you guys to say the name of the movie with me in unison so that maybe, just maybe, we'll all get some superpowers out of this, if you know what I'm saying.
That'd be
Wink.
great.
Because of all this, because of what this movie is. So I'm gonna count it down. I'm gonna say three, two, one, and then and then we're all gonna say the name of the movie at the same time, and hopefully we get some powers. Are you ready, guys?
Yep.
Ready, Mitch?
Ready.
All right. Three, two, one. Shazam!
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 Oh my God, you guys suck. Well, whatever.
Hey, I was on time.
What do you
okay?
mean we suck? I said Shazam
I was
at
on
the
time.
same exact time
You were a little
did,
delayed
asshole.
on my thing on my headset, but that's okay. Close enough. So thank you for
How
that.
much you want to bet that everybody on YouTube's going to be like, they said at the same time, and he was like, you assholes.
Well, whatever. Then I'm the asshole if that's the case. So that's fine. But yeah, so that is number one is Shazam. So, like I said, I rank this movie number one myself. I think it edges the other ones out, and here's why. Um, Great, aside from great movie review or critic reviews, aside from great fan reviews, this movie is hands down, in my opinion, the most humorous of all of the DCEU movies, and it sticks very closely to the source material to do this. Shazam in the DC source material is probably one of,
Well,
if not
yes
the
and
most.
no, but I'll let you keep going.
Thanks. Shazam is one of the most humorous characters in all of the DC, most humorous heroes. So I think that's why the humor translated very well to the movie. Um, I think that this was a great origin story for this character. It was a really good story. I think Zach, what's his name, the guy who plays Shazam?
Levi.
Yeah, him. He was a really good choice to play him. He really fits the part, both in physical appearance and in personality. It's a really, like I said, the story is just really, really good. The humor is really, really good. The action is really, really good too. I honestly don't really have much bad to say about this movie. Like, it's just a really solid movie through and through. This is the only movie, by the way, in the DCEU that I paid money to see because
I was just going to say, I remember
yes,
you
I was adamant about
making
it
that
too.
comment.
Yes, I paid money to see it. I wanted to see it in theaters, and I did. I was not disappointed. And so I think the only criticism I have about this movie, I want to say, is um, kind of the way they did the end, where they had like the Shazam family come out. So like that's kind of like combining the two different versions of Shazam. So obviously the original Shazam was a Billy Batson, and how he obviously gets the powers from the wizard, and he says obviously Shazam to change. But as a side note, you guys didn't get any powers, did you? You didn't turn into no,
No.
Mitch, no.
Fortunately,
Damn it. All right,
unfortunately not.
I guess we're stuck doing my podcast then. So
I got electrocuted the other day. Didn't get powers either. So
again, Jesus. Well, that's a story for another time. Anyway, so but no, I thought it was kind of weird the way they did the end, because then the second rendition of Shazam, I believe, was like the Shazam family, where there was all the kids and stuff. So I thought it was kind of weird that they stuck those two together at the end, and I kind of am a little.
the thing that you're misunderstanding though is Flashpoint.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and that'll be you can bring that up at the end of everything, because we're definitely going to have a little bit of reflection on the future of DCEU after this. But yeah, so I think that it's going to be a little strange. Like, I'm curious to see how they go forward with that. Like when they do another Justice League, for example, or whatever. I know they have the next Shazam in the works, is like Shazam: Fury of the Gods, I think, but that's not coming out until like 2022 or 2023 or something, I think. So we got another couple of years till that comes out. But yeah, I'm curious to see how they go forward with that, because that's kind of weird. But other than that, I think that it did have a good villain. I forget his name, Doctor something or other.
I'll
Yeah,
give you a hint. It starts with a V.
Doctor V, Doctor. Yeah, well, I'm not gonna say that. But anyway. So, but yeah, like I said, I really don't have anything really bad to say about this movie aside from that, and that was what made the decision for me, was that. So, and I appreciate a good underdog story, which this movie definitely had. And yeah, everything flowed very
Well,
well.
yeah, I mean Billy Batson's an orphan, so like
Don't
his
get much more
story
underdog than
is
that, right?
Definitely not.
yeah, like
So
no family.
yeah, so but yeah, everything really well done. But yeah, I'll throw it over to you, Feltz, if you want to give me your opinion on Shazam. I know you were a pretty big fan of this movie as well.
You've pretty much touched on everything. I
Well,
thought
thank
it.
you.
I thought it was. Shut up! I'm not giving you an ego boost or anything.
You already
I'm
did. Too
just.
late.
I was just gonna say you're
Too
giving
late.
him way too much credit, but
Too
all
late.
right.
Too late.
I thought it was great. I was, it was another one that I wasn't expecting much out of it, because it was. I don't know. It was great. It was funny. It was cute. I liked the end, and I'm kind of glad that they went with that ending, because then it can set up the next movie. They don't have to have a whole movie dedicated to them getting their powers. It's like
Right.
not giving them another origin. So it's like, here you go, have fun with it, and move on. And I think it's gonna. I liked it.
Yeah. And speaking of that end, the very, very end credit scene, I actually thought that was pretty funny too, the way they did.
Yes.
Although I will say, I was another mild disappointment. I really wish they could have got Henry Cavill to actually show up for that cameo, rather than just obviously doing the heavy, like.
That's a hard task.
Yeah,
Yeah.
apparently. So
Yeah.
or
Cavill's he's an in demand
he's
person.
a
You're not
highly
gonna
sought
show up
after
for like 2
talent. Yeah,
minutes.
it's also hard to get him to shave his mustache too. So I hear. But
He was filming something else. Okay.
I know.
Let's not blame him for
That
that.
leads to, well, that's DC's fault, which we're going to talk about after Mitch gives us
Oh,
his opinion on Shazam, because I know you rank this movie very high as well.
yeah, Shazam was great. I guess the biggest you know what sucks is that what you guys represented as like your biggest like the points that you loved about it.
Hmm.
That's what's actually kind of bothered me.
Really, that's a little surprising.
The original Shazam
Hmm.
was Billy Batson.
Hmm.
Uh, he, the subway I found awesomely accurate because that is how it happened in the comics.
Hmm.
Um, what I didn't like how it ended was I knew at some point Shazam had to share his power,
Yeah.
you know, with his siblings.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that, and I was ready for that. But like, I felt like you needed to give me more than like one movie for that, you know.
So you would have
So I
actually
felt
preferred if they would have waited till like the second movie for him to do the power sharing with all the other kids.
yeah, because that's what happened in the comics when he came up against Black Adam.
Right.
Is when he realized he's met his match.
Right, which is obviously the next villain that they teased in this movie, and of course they're actually giving us a
Well, plus
standalone
the
Black Adam
Thinker,
movie
plus
as
well,
well.
yeah, plus the Thinker, but you know they're also giving us a individual Black Adam movie. But yeah, like that's why I say what I'm saying
Yeah.
because you know it kind of just seemed a little again like
Like they're
DC
rushing
wanted
things
to
too much.
be yeah be a
Gotcha.
little premature, you know.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, there's a reason why things go in sequence.
Yes.
And, you know, they kind of take it to the degree of like, oh, it don't really matter as long as people like it.
Yeah.
Well, I liked it, but I didn't. Shazam was a good movie. I'll hold it up to one of the number ones that DC's made.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I will say he still made a lot of mistakes with that one too.
All right. Fair enough. So I guess at this point it is that pretty much wraps the list. So I do want to spend. I know we're this is going to be quite a long one, but that's just what it is. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to do not only a little bit of reflection on the DCEU thus far, but also a little bit of a look ahead to what's to come with the DCEU. So obviously, um, we have the future projects immediately on the docket. We have the next movie coming out in a couple months, and I know Feltz is pretty excited about this one. So, what is it, Feltz?
We're getting the Suicide Squad,
That is right, the second Suicide Squad, which might actually not suck because it's directed by James Gunn. Um,
which is gonna be great.
Yes, I think this actually has a lot of potential to be good. I mentioned a couple of the other projects briefly before, but we're getting in within the next couple of years a Shazam sequel. I know there's an Aquaman 2 that's in the works. There is
Don't bring it up. Just don't do it.
don't do what? I don't know what you're talking about.
You will. Just
I
don't.
really don't know what you're talking about. Don't.
Shazam, Shazam, Aquaman, whatever. Just don't bring up who you know I'm talking about.
Oh, Green Lantern or no?
At mm,
Oh, Green Lantern Core is going to be something.
uh,
Was that what you didn't want me to bring up?
nope.
Can you tell me? Because I legitimately don't know. I'm kind of out of ideas at this point, or I'm out of talking points.
It's on my arm, bro.
Oh yeah, the Robert Pattinson Batman. But that
No, don't do
the
it.
Robert
Just don't
Pattinson
bring
It's
it
Batman.
not
up.
a part of the DCEU though.
Yeah, I
I
was
don't
gonna
think.
say that's not a part
So
of the DCEU. I don't think so. I wasn't gonna bring that up, but that's another DC
But this
project.
is a thing.
Oh, the Flash, obviously,
What
which feeds to what you were saying
what I
earlier.
think is gonna happen is like that new Batman, Robert Pattinson, whatever him.
Which I know you're not crazy about,
he's
but
actually a good actor. I'm just trying.
Is he?
I've
Is he?
seen his
Is he?
other stuff that's not just Twilight.
I
Okay.
know, like he sparkles in the sunlight
No,
and has
I
a magic
I
wand.
hated
It's all
Twilight.
good. He belongs to Hufflepuff. It's all good.
I think you're
Listen,
crossing
Don't touch
franchises
Harry
there.
Potter.
But I mean, I'm not even a fan of either one of those franchises, and I know that. But I appreciate the joke. Um,
all I'm saying is I feel like what DC is gonna end up having to do because they've been fucking up so hard, and this is I'm sure you love this aspect of your podcast at the moment.
mhm.
True fans saying they're fucking up, but here's the thing.
Well, you got to call it like you see it, dude, and I appreciate that.
What I'm saying is what they got going on right now. I feel like they're gonna try to kind of piggyback off the Joker movie,
Hmm. Well, that was very
which
successful,
fine.
even though not part of
That's
the
a great
DCEU.
movie. Piggyback off of it, but what I'm saying is
Hmm.
whenever I hear anyone say, "Oh, that's not DC, that's not DC," I feel like that's gonna be the DC. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we had this discussion. Actually, we did talk about the Joker movie in one of our previous podcasts, not exclusively, but we talked about it a little. Um, and I said, and I still firmly believe this, if DC was smart, they would use, because that movie made a truckload of money, right? So more than that, actually, probably like
This is an
several
amazing
truckloads of
movie though
money,
too.
and it
You
was a
know,
great movie too. That was a really really good movie, that Joker standalone. I think that if they were smart, they would, and this is going to feed into an overarching point that I'm trying to make, is that if DC was smart, it would play to its strengths, and what its strength is dark stories, more serious stories, like the Joker, for example. And if they were smart, they would try to world build off of that Joker movie. And I don't know if I don't think this is confirmed, but if they were smart, the Robert Pattinson Batman would tie, because he's supposed to be playing an extremely young version of Batman, that should tie directly to the Joker, because obviously we know at the end of the Joker movie we see the death of Batman's parents. So if, like I
hmm
said, if they were smart, they would make that part of the same universe. And I know what you were alluding to with Flash, with the Flash movie that's going to be coming out. You think that's going to somehow tie everything together with Flashpoint,
it's
um,
supposed to. According to
which,
DC, the Flashpoint movie is supposed to tie everything together.
yes, and that's going to be a tall task, but maybe they can pull it off. I don't know. But yeah, so that's the problem right now, and that kind of feeds into what I want to talk about as far as like the DCEU up until this point, as and what we can expect in the future. So, um, the DCEU has obviously been a very mixed bag up until this point. I will say that, like I said, the bottom half of this list I'm not impressed with, to say the least. Like I said, the top half of this list, and this is something that I didn't really think about much until recently, is actually you got some pretty good movies there. And so, what I've learned after thinking about this for a while is that DC is obviously still capable of doing good live action, right? But in order to do it good, they have to do a couple of things. They have to, number one, stick to the source material, because I've noticed in all the movies that we were talking about toward the bottom of the list, what were one of the biggest problems that we had with it? It departed too drastically from the source material, right? So that's
Right.
one thing. Another big problem that they have is that they rush things. They try to push production, they try to rush movies, and they get sloppy when they're rushing things. Now, if they take their time with creating something like they did with stuff like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the Shazam, I should say, um, they actually can turn out some good products. And like I said with Wonder Woman, the reason that movie was a big landmark for them is because that was the first legitimately very good, if not great, movie that DC had turned out in nearly a decade at that point. So it's like
Right.
it's like DC has proven to us that it can still give us good, if not great, live action like it once did, but it has to do these things. It has to stick to the source material. It has to play to its strengths. It has to take its time to develop its product. And what I mean by play to the strengths is, I mean, it has to simply stick with what brought it to the dance. So DC is a much more serious, more dark comic franchise than Marvel by nature. So when they do things like try to copy Marvel, like try to be Marvel with like the humor aspect and trying to jam it in where it doesn't belong and make things more lighthearted, it doesn't really work with DC as well because it's not designed for that, you know? And
No, I agree 100% because
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of people out there that think DC legit just stands for dark comics.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yes,
Hmm.
And with that being said, like there's a reason for that. I mean, come on, look at the most famous villain, the Joker.
yeah,
Describe him as a villain.
nuts,
That's one word. Like there, no,
fellas.
like
Psychotic,
you can't, you
Yeah,
you can't, you
you need
murderous.
a lot of words,
yeah.
is the point, I think. Right.
But that's the point. My point is, you take a darkest. Now take your darkest villain. Who's your darkest villain in Marvel?
I mean, maybe from the source material Thanos, although they portrayed him as more of like a noble-esque villain in the movies, obviously. But
Yeah,
in the
apparently
movies,
Spectrum
probably the
Man.
most bloodthirsty evil villain in the MCU might have been Hela. Honestly, I'm trying to think of
Huh.
who else could
Well,
fit
what I'm
that
saying
role.
is, if you say Thanos, I don't know how if you've been keeping up with the MCU,
Well,
but
obviously.
now they have a new character named Spectrum,
Oh, have they? Oh,
who
you mean the
is based
comics?
off of Green Lantern.
Interesting.
And the way that he beat Thanos was by shooting his hand, which had the Infinity Rings, and blew them off of his fingertips and then killed him.
Nice.
So, I don't know.
Well,
My point is
yeah, I got you.
that DC is dark.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no villain you could compare to the Joker.
Of course. Yeah, I
If you
definitely wouldn't.
try, you can't. I
No,
mean,
you're right.
go
I
for
agree
it.
with you on that point. Absolutely. And so, but that's my point over. My overarching point is that if DC was smart, they would do those things. They would play to their strengths. They would not just try to copy Marvel. And this feeds to, I think, the kind of the fall of DC live action, which is something I've been thinking about today that I just kind of want to throw in, and then we'll kind of call it at that point. But I feel like it's kind of funny because if you think about what I've been saying this entire podcast, right? What was the last great DC movie? And I think it was The Dark Knight in 2008. So, what
Yeah,
else?
the Nolan series.
Yeah, now what else came out in 2008? The answer, the original
I don't
Iron
want to
Man.
answer that.
The original Iron
I
Man.
don't want to. All
But I'm
right,
going to
fine. All
answer it.
right, so you'll
So
answer
I
it for me,
feel
but
like so that was 13 years ago. So it's kind of
Mm.
interesting to me that I feel like that was the beginning of the MCU, right? So I feel like it's weird and interesting because it feels like the rise of Marvel live action has kind of coincided with the fall of DC live action, and I'm not really 100% sure why. But I definitely have noticed that, and I think a big problem with the DCEU, if we're talking about that specifically, because obviously the Nolan trilogy is not part of the DCEU. The problem,
unfortunately,
right? The problem is, well, it'd be a lot better if it was.
hell
But
yeah.
the problem is, what happened was, you had obviously the Green Lantern movie in 2010, which we talked about, which was terrible, which kind of threw DC into a kind of a tailspin as far as live action goes, and to the point that they didn't even want to touch the character again for a Justice League movie, which I still think is ridiculous. But beyond that, I can't get over that, dude. I can't. There's a reason I put it on the thumbnail. I cannot get over that. It will never stop bothering me. And
Listen, but you have to because even Ryan Reynolds has put it to rest
they
with
didn't
his
need
first
Ryan
Deadpool
Reynolds.
movie.
They could. Do you know how many tall, handsome, clean-cut looking white guys there are? That, or even if they didn't want to do a Hal Jordan Green Lantern, they could have easily done a John Stewart Green Lantern instead. But my point, that's off topic. My point is this: what happened, I think, was DC got in a rut with its live action at the same time that Marvel's live action was really rising to greatness. And so what DC did was they doubled down and they screwed themselves even harder because they got to a point where they were like, oh shit, Marvel's making all this money on live action. We want to cut ourselves our slice of that pie. So we got to really jump hard into superheroes. And oh, the Avengers were out in 2012, so now we have to try and mirror them. They had Cap Civil War, so I feel like Cap Civil War or
I think it was like a giant
it was a game of
game of
catch
catch
up
up.
essentially is what they were trying to play. So they were trying to say, okay, you got Captain America Civil War, we got Batman versus Superman, except for Cap Civil War was actually good, and Batman versus Superman, one of the worst superhero movies of all time. We got you got the Guardians of the Galaxy, we got the Suicide Squad, except for Guardians of the Galaxy, legitimately a great movie. Suicide Squad, again, one of the worst superhero movies ever.
Just
You want to put your
FYI though, the graphics for
yeah
I won't lie, like let's say Iron Man didn't come out yet,
yeah
and let's say Captain America First Avenger did.
yeah.
Bro, those Steve Rogers graphics when he was all skinny and shrimpy they were kind of fucked.
Yeah, we all know how you feel about that, but this isn't about that. Okay, it's not about skinny Steve Rogers and your hatred for him. This is so anyway. Back to my other point, they were like, "Oh, well, obviously you did the Avengers twice now, so let's get the Justice League in there." But that's my point, and I mentioned it earlier. They rushed it. They tried to to stick it out as quick as they could because they were like, we want our slice of the pie. But what they did was, in their haste of trying to cut themselves that slice of pie, they cut their finger off with the knife, and then they bled in the pie, and then they ruined it, and it was disgusting, and nobody wanted to take a bite. And now they're just
That's a
trying.
nasty image.
Yeah, it is, and that's what happened though. As far as it's a great analogy that I thought of a couple days ago that I was waiting to use.
Fucking
Um,
TJ.
but yeah, fuck TJ, whoever that is. But anyway, my point is, so that's what DC did in their haste, and that feeds back to the point I've been making this whole time is that they can't do that because they will mess it up. And like I said, the mistakes they made in movies like Batman versus Superman and movies like the Justice League, those are going to be mistakes
Was
that
not fucking listening.
what's not listening?
No, that's the mistake they made, was
Oh
not
yeah, not the
listening.
well among other things, yes, the mistake they made not listening, trying to rush the product out, trying to copy Marvel instead of just doing what brought them to the dance, and those mistakes are going to be hurting the franchise for years to come.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that's the problem, and they can still fix it though. That's the thing. I mean, there's certain things that they are just kind of stuck with that they have to work with, but at the same time, there's a lot of room for improvement. And like I said, DC has
But
proven
that's
to us
why I
that they
brought
can
up
give
the
us
point. What I was
great
saying to
live
you in the
action. They just
past
have
was
to do
they
it
are
right.
trying to fix it, though, dude.
Yes.
Like, but the only way Marvel and DC can compete, and the only way they've tried to fix it
Mhm.
is through their animated movies, and that's why I wanted you to see. Has anyone else besides me here seen Dark Apocalypse?
I don't
No.
think so. And I understand where you're coming from, dude, and I don't mean this to take a shot at you, but this is genuinely how I feel about that. I understand that that DC has put so much more into animation, and they are definitely when it comes to animation, I will never argue, I'll never take up an argument because I understand that DC is undoubtedly the champion of animation when it comes to DC versus Marvel, but unfortunately at this point Marvel is undoubtedly the champion of live action over DC, and I think generally speaking, people tend to care more, or more people tend to care about live action, where that's really where like the blockbusters are, at least up
I
until
can't
we hit
disagree with that.
COVID. So
I
yeah, and
can't.
and now things are starting to get back to normal, which is nice. So we don't know exactly where movies are going to go in theaters anymore. But all that aside, that's just kind
It
of the
ain't gonna make a
duality.
difference. DC's still gonna push out garbage. Marvel's still gonna push out
Well, but
masterpieces.
here's the thing: is that I mean, I do expect nothing but masterpieces from Marvel, but at this point, but DC, like I said, DC has shown me that it can still make live action good. It just has to do those things that we talked about, follow those steps, and it can do it. Yes, there's still certain things that they can't change or fix, but at this end of the day, they can do a good enough job. I mean, hell, if they can make a good Aquaman movie, there's no excuse for what we've seen. There's no excuse for what we got with the Justice League if they can make a good Aquaman movie. Come on. So that's pretty much those are my thoughts. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, Phelps. If you agree or disagree with anything I said, if you want to add any of your own thoughts to that.
No.
Wow, what an expert
The
analysis
only
once
thing
again.
I
No,
want to
I'm just
say is
crashing a bit.
Fair enough. It is getting
the
late.
only thing I want to say is this,
Go
and
for
we'll
it.
leave it here.
Yep.
Is bro,
Yeah.
when you watch the Aquaman movie,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Let me ask you an honest question.
Yeah.
Wasn't blonde hair, blue eyed, wasn't, traditional.
Mhm.
Great movie. They got some things right, some things off.
Mhm.
But, but, did that movie not make you be like, maybe they're catching on?
Yeah, it did. It definitely did. It did make me feel like yes, maybe they're finally learning their lesson. I mean, Wonder Woman made me feel that way, despite having not seen it, just reading the reviews and the synopsis and all that.
Kind of creepy you say that without seeing it,
But
but
yeah,
go ahead.
but yes, Aquaman made me feel the same way as say like, okay, DC again. It was proof that DC has showed me it can do live action. It can still do live action right. It just has to take the time to do it right. Follow the source material. Don't try to copy Marvel. Just stick with what brought you to the dance. Do your
But the
own thing.
problem is Marvel hasn't exactly shown that it can do animation right.
Well, like I said, that's a topic
Isn't
for
that a
another
little
discussion.
nerve? Isn't that like a little
Not exactly,
you
because
know?
like they have come out with a lot more Marvel cartoons and animated stuff, and they're not. I haven't seen many of them. From what I've seen, it's actually not bad. It's pretty good. And I don't think any of the Marvel animation was ever really bad. It's just that the DC animation is just better in pretty much every way. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, I think that where it's really at in the year 2021 is live action is really far more important to your brand than animation is. So when it comes to these superhero franchises, so at the end of the day, it just kind of is what it is. Like I said, with Marvel, I expect masterpieces at this point. We get, but this isn't about that. With DC, and don't get me wrong, with DC, I would like to see good and great movies again from DC. I really would, because at the end of the day, while I do, in a way, enjoy, shitting on DC
No,
to an extent,
in a way,
because in a
huh?
way, because
In a way.
it's a rivalry.
In a
Yeah.
way,
Oh, you're awake
thank
enough
you.
for
In a
that,
way,
weren't you, Phelps? You're awake enough to take that shot.
I'm
Yeah,
glad
well,
that came back. In a
Oh,
way,
you're waking up. But yeah, aside from the pleasure I get from that with the rivalry, obviously with me being on Marvel's side and you being on DC side, I don't want to see bad content. I would like to see great content from everybody. I would like to see DC give me great content. I would have loved it if the Justice League movie, at least the original version of it, they pulled it off and it was great. I would really like to see more stuff like Shazam or Aquaman or stuff like that they actually did it right and they pulled it off. But I am skeptical at this point as to what whether or not they will do that
you know what
because
I'd like to see?
yeah,
You know what I would like to see?
what's that?
I would like to see you dedicate yourself to your franchise the same way I have to mine.
Well, I
I
don't
have
plan on getting any
evidence, proof,
tattoos, that's
and I
for
have a
sure.
tattoo on my arm.
Yeah, I don't plan on that anytime soon. But
Well, then clearly you are not dedicated to Marvel the way I am to
I mean,
DC.
I consider myself a very tried and true fan. Am I dedicated enough to get their emblems or anything or their superheroes uh, logos tattooed on me? Probably not. But yeah. So I guess we'll see what the future holds. Like I said, I would hope that DC would have learned its lesson at this point, and like I said, I will definitely say the DCEU is not all as bad as people give it a hard time for upon further review that we've done here today. But yeah, I mean, it has been a roller coaster, and like I said, we can only hope that they've learned their lessons and that they're going to, continue to turn things around and give us some great product. And yeah, we'll be watching. We'll be waiting for it. So, you have anything else you want to say, Feltz, in closing?
I just hope that they go with the Snyderverse and it'll be in better hands for a while. So
Yeah,
that's
fair enough. Mitch, anything? No.
I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is Joss Whedon's gone. I guarantee you, will be the Snyderverse. Especially after the results that
The feedback.
people got for
Yeah.
forget about it that we got from Snyder Cut.
Yep.
Um,
It's a safe bet.
DC, unlike Marvel, has only one direction to go, and that's up.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
And I think what Marvel needs to worry about, especially you, good sir,
Hmm.
is that
When you're on the top, there's only one way to go. Is that what you're telling me?
no,
All right.
when the rise starts to begin,
Mm-hmm.
You enjoy your fall.
Well, I hope we don't fall. I mean, like I said, I want to see great content from everybody, so I hope that doesn't happen. It's specifically, if I had to obviously pick, if I could only get
I
great
want to see
content from
Marvel
one,
crash and burn, and I want to see
I bet
DC
you
Oh, I
do.
explode.
don't want to see
I
that.
bet you do, you sour son of a bitch. Yeah.
I am sour.
Yeah. Well, I get.
You're lucky you got Robert Downey Jr. son of a. Don't think I forgot about the Fantastic Four. Don't think I forgot
Oh,
about.
hey,
Listen,
Marvel's definitely put out its fair share of turds over the years too. There's no argument there. Obviously not within the MCU, but there's definitely been bad Marvel movies that we don't have to talk about.
well,
Daredevil,
don't think I've
Blade. I
forgotten.
mean, the
X
Fantastic
Men
Four, man.
United. We having an X Men podcast. You guys
X3.
want to do that?
We
Yeah,
might we
let's do
might be
that. All
doing
right.
at some point in the future. We might talk about the X-Men universe, but there's a lot of options on the table for. We might talk more about Batman. We might talk more about a whole bunch of different things. So um, we'll see what
Listen, we
happens.
talk
But
about Batman.
yeah,
You know who to bring into about that.
oh, I do. But I think that's a good place to leave it there. So we're way over time as usual. But
Eh,
passionate
it's
opinions
as
and
usual.
yeah, business as usual. Passionate opinions. It's all good. So that's it. Thanks for watching it, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, share the video if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future. I want to thank my guests, the panel V3, that is Mitchelonius and Feltz Wild, for joining me here to hash out all things DC and then some. So thank you guys for that.
No problem.
DC power.
All right, so that's it, and we'll see you next time.